And the first order of business is to turn our thoughts to the Creator, to ask for the Creator's guidance in help in our discussions and the work that we will do on behalf of our people. So our first act is to remember the Creator and all that He does for us. Benjokwa sedawan siyos go nigariwesa na e gadadi ahodon gariwat tegong onga dewo nun hode agwego unska adeniwe noni neongwa nigora dano de yatiniwe rados ne ongwe soha suk agwego skano agonhage agwego unska adeniwe noni ne ongwa nigora dano de yatiniwe rados ne yadet ni stonha G Yoanjadi, G Segon, Gatko Gahwo, Hadjes, Ago Satstonsera, Na Eoni, Yohage, Agwego, Unska, Adeniwe Noni, Neongwa Negora, Dano, De Tiniwe Rados, Ne, Agwego, Yokion, Wese, G Yoanjadi, Agwego, Unska, Adeniwe Noni, Neongwa Negora, Dano, De Tiniwe Rados, De Agwego, to Yonk, Yon was a G Garonhiade, Dano, Ono, Gadi agwego, de siwe no werado, ni sungwaya dizo, nene negasat stonsera, wa o so yera, eto neo dunhak neongwa negora. And it translates to, my people, listen for a short time. The business has now come to pass. Everyone, we will bring our minds together as one and send our greetings to the people, so that peace will continue for all. Everyone, we will bring our minds together and send as one and send our greetings to our Mother the Earth as she still goes along, giving of her own strength for us to live good lives. Everyone, we will bring our minds together as one and send our greetings to all things that support us on the earth. Everyone, we will bring our minds together as one and send our greetings to all things that support us in the sky and the heavens. And now we send our greetings and thanksgiving to Sungwayat Dizo, the Creator, the great strength of the natural world. Let this always continue in our minds. And we observe both the traditional thanksgiving as well as the Christian prayer, which is the Lord's Prayer. Sungwat Niha, Negaronghyagi de Siderum, Hogosanada Gondi, Sayanetsra Ahandawat, Janunsre et Niawan Hunjagi, Jonanito Negaronghyagi, Dagyo Negoni Sarade, Yatani with Saragi, Ungonandra Cleone, Donagoriosto, Nejun Guari Wanero, Chicha the Gary Stones, Ne Radi Wanner Oxera, Ego Ase Sawan, Nagayanentra Nagasat Stonsera, always Onsra, Jenyahoe, Awa. So the first order of business is, where did my pen go? The first order of business is to review and adopt the agenda. So take a look at the agenda while I go and get a pen. I can't seem to locate my pen.
And they don't have to break in your face. So
Well, that's good. So when I'm drinking my
right
coffee,
there,
you'll hear it.
it's good. If you get it too close, it's really low.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
So the agenda, we have an agenda before you. I'll just go over it with what's on it. So we have the minutes of August the 14th, 2023, local business, August the 16th, 2023, August 30th and 2023, local business minutes. There will be a time for questions arising from the minutes, a list of meetings outside of the territory. On September the 19th and 20th is the Co-Leadership Council. In Ottawa, the Chiefs Council, the council will be on the 19th, and the Métis Rights Assertion protest will be on the 20th in Ottawa. A bus is going from here, so if you need a seat, please reserve your seat with Rebecca Bartlett in Communications. On October the 3rd to the 4th is the Chiefs Committee on Housing, on Health, and the Health Coordination Unit Strategic Planning Session in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. This is the AIA. This is the Chiefs of Ontario. Then on 11th and to the 13th, 2023 in Calgary, Alberta will be the J Treaty Border Association meeting. All the Grand Chiefs are going to that meeting from the Iroquois Caucus, and they're signing a protocol with the Blackfoot Nation in the U.S. On October the 23rd, 24th, 2023, AI Chiefs Council will meet in Niagara Falls. And then there'll be a CO RDM Powering Up Data Sovereignty Conference in Toronto on the 24th and 25th. We have a dispatch agreement to sign for our fire department's use. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry Riverine Fishery Assessment exercise will be, there's an agreement there to review and approve. There's a right-of-way agreement to be signed. There are business registration for Dip Kings, business registration renewal for Res Boys, employment and training policy, the ONEFDA funding agreement and budget, the MCR support for a Jordan Principal Navigator. That's 2 navigators, by the way. MCR for addition to the CW building. There's going to be an anticipated cost of a little over $2 million overrun. MFS, Transitional Housing Support Policy, is now in place. It needs to be approved by council. There is a lawyer's invoice from Hicks Morley. A decision to whether to proceed or retender the All Saints ramp project. The elder care home, decision to be made there. The employer pension contribution. The employees are asked to decide their own investment strategy for their own pension funds. We will need to reschedule the October 11th local business meeting due to a conflict in my schedule. And then we have a private agenda. There are minutes of the 14th of August, the 16th of August, the August 23rd, 2023, and a special meeting on August 30th. There'll be a time to question business arising for the minutes. The Prince Edward Council request for meeting.
That's private. Yeah.
Private, okay. And there's some other private items there. And then there's some decisions to make on some business registration renewals. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as provided? There's just one addition there I'd like. It's just a matter of a resolution. I sent it out this morning. It's the railway safety resolution. It's done? Yeah. Was that communicated to them, Shelley? Do you know? Okay, I wonder why they're writing. They must not read their mail then. Oh, okay, that's fine. All right, that's good. So do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Ted moves. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it, Chief.
Chris, anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. We will have the minutes. The minutes of August the 14th. Present were myself, Ted Miracle and Chris Miracle, Stacia Loft joined by Teams, and Josh was absent. Was that due to work, Josh, or? Okay. David Soulier joined, I thought it was by Zoom. Angela, I thought she joined by Zoom. Is that correct, David and Angela?
Yeah, that's correct, Chief. We joined on Teams.
On Teams, okay. And Angela, you were on Teams, if I recall correctly.
Yes, Chief.
Okay, so we'll just record that by Teams as an addition. So Shelley Bowden was present. And then the MZ Miracle was here, Executive Council assistant to me. And there was a motion moved by Chris and seconded by Ted that I be authorized to remove the Queen Anne Silver, the Queen Elizabeth II Chalice, the King George VI and King George V Book of Common Prayer from the Bank of Montreal vote for the TVO Crossroads documentary filming on August 15th, and that has been done. Those are the minutes. Is there a motion to approve these minutes as corrected?
So just one correction that I just caught now.
Okay.
At the very top, so a meeting of the Tyendinaga Mohawk Council was held. It was on Monday, August 14th,
Monday, okay,
not Wednesday. So that could just be updated. I just saved it in the drive.
okay.
I did something else.
Is there any other corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, can we have a motion to accept the minutes as corrected?
Which date is that, Chief?
The 14th of August, just follow your agenda.
Yep. Okay.
Is there a motion to accept these minutes?
I can move.
Stacia, is there a seconder?
Second.
Chris? Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? The motion is carried. We'll have the minutes of the 16th of August. So I was present, Josh was present, Stacia was present. Stacia joined by teams, and Ted and Chris were present. David Soulier, I think you joined by teams. David, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Chief.
Yeah, it says joined by teams. Angela Miracle, senior, did you join by teams as well, Angela, or were you here that day?
I was in the room.
Okay. It says joined by teams. So that's not correct then?
Oh, nope, sorry, maybe. I don't know, all our meetings run together. Sorry.
We're on the 16th, August 16th. Said you joined by teams?
If that's what she put, then that would be accurate.
Okay, Shelley Bowden, administrative assistant, was present. Recording secretary to council, Amzi Miracle, my assistant, was present. I opened the meeting with the Hohondo Garawatego and also provided it should read the Lord's Prayer. And there was a motion to adopt the move by Chris and seconded by Ted to adopt the agenda with additional items. That was carried. There was the councilman as well as the second were approved as corrected, and it was carried. It was moved by Chris and Josh and seconded by Chris to approve travel outside the territory. My attendance at the Aboriginal Labor for Development Circle, LFDC, annual general meeting on September the 7th, and I instead of attending, I joined by a Zoom call because there were some emergencies here that had to be dealt with. It was moved by, and that was carried. It was moved by Ted and seconded by Josh that the council meetings for September, October, November, and December were approved. The meetings, the regular meeting would be September the 13th at 9:30 a.m. Local business would be the 13th and 20th of September at 7 p.m. For October, the 5th and 19th were the regular council meetings. The local business meetings were on the 11th and 25th of October. For November, the regular council was the 1st and 15th at 9:30, and local business would be the 8th and 22nd at 7 p.m. And for December, the regular meeting would be December 13th at 9:30 a.m. And that will be a meeting just to approve the whatever outstanding minutes are from the previous term of council. Council went into private at 10:30 a.m. Council returned to regular at 3 p.m. It was moved by Ted and seconded by, and that was due to a number of delegations to council that we had to organize it that way. It was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that whereas the Mohawks to Bay Quinte currently holds their elections under the Indian Act and Indian Band regulations, and whereas section 74(2) subparagraph 2 states that unless otherwise ordered by the minister, the council of band in respect of which an order has been made, under subsections 1 shall consist of 1 chief and 1 councillor for every 100 members of the band. And the number shall not be less than 2 and not more than 12, and no band shall not have more than 1 chief. And whereas there are 10,314 members of the Mohawks Bay of Quinte, and whereas a current ministerial order dated June 5th, 1992, stating that the size of the council is made up of 4 councillors and 1 chief, whereas the council has done several community engagement efforts to determine the size of council the members would prefer, and whereas these efforts have consistently demonstrated that the members of the Bay of Quinte who have chosen to participate in the engagement efforts have identified they would prefer the council consist of 6 councillors as opposed to the current complement of 4. Therefore, be it resolved that the council is requesting for a new ministerial order identifying that the size of council of the Mohawks Bay of Quinte is made up of 6 councillors and 1 chief, immediately putting the change into effect for the 2023 election of the Mohawks Bay of Quinte. Council discussed staff would prefer to run for council. The policy states staff that are nominated must take a leave until the election, and if elected must resign from MBQ. Council would like staff to provide the pros and cons and ideas regarding staff running for council. It was moved by Chris and seconded by Ted to acknowledge the request from Carrie Nisbet, Acting Director of Indigenous Affairs, Controlled Substance and Cannabis Branch, Health Canada, to participate in the legislative review for the federal cannabis and have a meeting with Chief Miracle, David Sawyer, Angela Miracle, Stacia Lofts, Susan Barberstock, Jason Brandt, and Lisa Miracle to review before arranging a meeting with the expert panel, and we still have to arrange that meeting yet. Cecil Capidia, Director of Finance, attended to discuss the 2023-24 budgets. It was moved by Chris and seconded by Stacia to approve the proposed consolidated budget for 2023-24 as presented. The motion was carried. It was moved by Chris and seconded by Ted to approve the proposed LP 2008 budget for 2023-24 as presented. The motion was carried. It was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the LP 2008 funds under the community development component in the amount of $114,184 for lands research program for 2022-23 fiscal year, and MCR 18 was signed and carried. It was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the Tyendinaga Mohawk Council approves to utilize the LP 2008 funds under the community development component in the amount of $173,257 for the new administration building operation and maintenance for 2023 fiscal year. MCR 19 was carried and signed. Moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the Mohawk Council approves to utilize the LP 2008 funds under the health component in the amount of $3,052. That should be, pardon me, it's $3,052 for recreation for 2022-23, and MCR 20 was signed and carried. It was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize LP 2008 funds under the health component in the amount of $86,875 for the fitness center for 22-23 fiscal year. MCR 21 was signed and carried. It was resolution 13 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the LP 2008 funds under community development in the amount of $293,401 for the nation building program for fiscal year 22-23. MCR 22 was carried and the resolution was signed. Motion 14 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize LP 2008 funds under the community development component in the amount of $156,475 for the fire program for 22-23 fiscal year. MCR 23 was carried and the resolution was signed. Motion 15 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the LP 2008 funds under the community development component in the amount of $11,466 for the Culberson Tract land claim for 22-23 fiscal year. MCR 24 was signed, and this will be also be subject to the recovery from Indigenous Services Canada. Motion 16 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the LP 2008 funds under the community development component in the amount of $14,081 for the library building operation and maintenance for 22-23 fiscal year. and Resolution 25 was signed and the motion was carried. Motion 17 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the Tyendinaga Mohawk Council approves to utilize the Open LP 2008 funds under the community development component in the amount of $27,104 for the community services building for 22-23 fiscal year. Resolution number 26 was carried. The resolution was signed. Motion 18 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the Open LP 2008 funds under community development in the amount of $401,002 for the Bayshore Road sewage upgrades. This should say sewage pumping station upgrades. And the resolution 27 was signed and the resolution was carried. The motion 19 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the Open LP 2008 funds for community development component in the amount of $10,698 for the North Street water main extension for 22-23. Resolution 28 was signed and the motion was carried. Motion 20 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the Open LP 2008 funds under community development in the amount of $102,000 for the water and sewer operations and maintenance for 22-23. Resolution 29 was signed and the motion was carried. Motion 21, council approved, moved by Ted and seconded by Chris, that the council approves to utilize the Open LP 2008 funds under community development in the amount of $127,351 for the Technical Services Department 22-23 fiscal year. Resolution 30 was signed and the motion was carried. Motion 22, moved by Ted and seconded by Chris, that the council approves to utilize the Open LP funds under community component and the development in the amount of $517,643.40 for the loan payments for the new administration building for 22-23 fiscal year. And resolution 31 was signed and the resolution was carried. And by next November, we'll have this building fully paid for. Motion 23 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the Open LP 2008 funds under community development component in the amount of $167,883 for the fire hall building for 22-23 fiscal year. MCR 2032 was signed and carried. Motion 24 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council approves to utilize the Open LP 2008 funds under the health component in the amount of $10,275 for other health-related budget 23-24 fiscal year. And resolution 33 was signed and it was carried. Motion 25 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris that the council hereby approves to transfer $2,591,781 from the equity portfolio from the fixed income portfolio investment at BM Residence account to the Casino Rama Bank account for the period ended March 31st, 2023. And resolution 34 was signed. The motion was carried. Council discussed the active transportation fund and requested staff to provide a report on what programs and services can apply for the fund. And that still is outstanding. We've not seen anything on that yet, but maybe Angela or David can speak to that. Moved by Chris and seconded by Josh that to acknowledge the appreciation letter and financial statement from the Tyendinaga Food Resource Golf Center Committee and raising $62,743.45 for the Tyendinaga Mohawk Food Resource Center. And again, a shout out for the food golf course golf tournament committee. They've done an excellent job. Motion 27 moved by Chris and seconded by Josh to acknowledge the Mohawk Firefighters Association hosting the beer tent at the Mohawk Fair September the 8th and 10th, 2023. The motion was carried and the beer tent did function at the fair this year. Motion 28 was moved by Chris and seconded by Ted to approve that to approve the letter. I should take out the word to approve to. I should say to approve the letter to the Ministry of Natural Resources, Forest and Forestry, providing authorization for surveillance, control, and communication to reduce the risk of and impacts of further spread of the water soldier invasive plant in the Bay of Quinte. The motion was carried. Motion 29 was moved by Chris and seconded by Josh to defer the request from Iroquois Caucus regarding an increase of $10,000 annual contribution until the budget and report on how the surplus funding is going to be used. The motion was carried. Motion 30 was moved by Chris and seconded by Ted to approve the business registration for Big Chiefs Erectors, owner Tim Miracle. Motion was carried. Motion 31 was moved by Chris and seconded by Ted to approve the Indigenous Services Canada Comprehensive Funding Agreement, Amendment 42, in the amount of $6,000 for room and board for a community member who was displaced from her home due to a tornado. Motion 32 was moved by Chris, seconded by Ted, to approve to pay Alan Pratt invoice in the amount of $5,337 and in the amount of $1,256 regarding the Culberson land claim partial settlement. The motion was carried. Motion 33 was moved by Ted and seconded by Chris to approve to pay the Templeman invoice in the amount of $165 regarding potential breach of privacy. The motion was carried. Motion 34 was moved by Chris and seconded by Ted to approve the signing of the Association of Iroquois and Allied Indians funding agreement in the amount of $25,000 for youth cultural camps. The motion was carried. It was moved by, motion 35 was moved by Chris and seconded by Stacia that whereas the Public's Railway Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September the 18th to the 24th, and where it is in the public's interest to raise citizens' awareness on reducing avoidable accidents, injuries, and damage caused by collisions at the level crossings or incidents involving trains and members of the community. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the railway industry, governments, police services, and media and other agencies and the public to raise safety awareness. And whereas CN encourages Chief and Council to adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing effort to save lives and prevent injuries in community, including our community, therefore be it resolved that the support the National Public Railway Safety Week to be held from September the 18th to the 24th, and MCR 35 was signed and carried. Motion 36 was moved by Chris and seconded by Stacia to approve the territory to be a pickup location for the demonstration in Ottawa opposing the illegitimate Métis assertion and Bill C-53 on September the 20th, and the motion was carried. Motion 37 was moved by Ted and seconded by Stacia to approve the catch basin easement and maintenance agreement with Jason Doreen for access to lot 68-3-1 concession 1. The motion was carried. And Chief Miracle would like to commend Tom Kring, Director of Housing and BPM, for all his hard work and dedication in getting things compiled for the long-term care facility. Council confirmed the following scheduled meetings. August 23rd, 7 p.m. in the council will be the local council meeting of council. Motion 38 was moved by Chris and seconded by Ted that the meeting go into private, and that happened at 5:25 p.m. That motion was carried. The minutes were recorded by the Executive Administrative Assistant and Recording Secretary to Council, Shelley Bowden. Are there any corrections to these minutes?
I've made corrections in the document on the drive. They are there. The only one I would add is under motion number 31, and that's to change her to there. I was trying to do it, but it won't allow me. For some reason, it's locked.
Motion 31 to change, what is it, Stacia?
Her to there.
Second last one.
Okay.
But all the other ones I've captured in the drive. I'm sure there are others missed.
Okay. There's only one person in that house, though.
Right, it's just to be a little bit more gender normative.
How
Gender
about
neutral,
from
sorry.
at home?
Um,
Could we put at home?
No, just their home. It's just to be gender neutral.
Their own home, okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Done. Is there any other corrections? Chris, do you have corrections?
Yeah, you're on August 16th, Chief?
16th, yes?
Yeah, okay. Motion 37, I thought I was negative on that.
Okay, we can record it.
Okay. I know in correspondence, emails were sent from staff, and I said I couldn't support it.
Okay, so we correct it, then that'll be a correction. Is there any other corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, can we have a motion to accept the minutes as corrected? And I've already mentioned mine as we went through.
I'll move.
Moved by Josh. Is there a seconder? Chris? To accept the minutes as corrected? Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. We will now have the minutes of August the 30th.
Would we like to do business arising after the
Oh,
conclusion of?
Yeah, we'll do it all together.
Okay.
August the 30th. The meeting was held on Wednesday, August the 30th. I was present, Josh was present, Stacia was present, Ted was present, and Chris joined by teams. Staff present was Angela, Senior Director of Operations, Shelley Bowden, Executive Recording Secretary, and joined by teams. MC Miracle, Assistant to the Chief, was present, and David Sullier was on vacation. Chief Miracle opened the meeting with the Ohodno Garuatego and also provide a Christian prayer, and that will read the Lord's Prayer in the Ganyonke Hagan English language. Motion 1 was moved by Ted and seconded by Stacia that the council hereby appoint Leah Brandt, registry number, as the electoral officer for the upcoming 2023 elections for the Mohawks Bay of Quinte. The nominations will be held on October the 21st, 2023 for the upcoming election. The election will be held on December the 2nd. To elect a chief, and it should say a chief and should say 6 councillors because it's in conflict with the previous resolution. So I'll put 6 there. And the department does expect to have that ministerial order assigned in time for the election.
And that's the MCR that's sent to the department with a note in the letter saying that if it changes, I will send a new MCR.
Okay. Okay, then that's fine then. So the motion 2 was moved by Ted and seconded by Josh, that whereas the MBQ water operators noticed during regular inspection, the Aquarius pretreatment tanks demonstrated the obvious signs of rusting in localized areas, and the partition wall in the tank demonstrated a deflection from the varying pressures of the water pushing against the wall. And whereas MBQ coordinated the site inspection with West Tech and First Nations Engineering Services to assess the tanks and finalize a remedial work plan, and whereas the proposed scope of the work includes installation of stiffeners and coatings removal and recoating of 2 pre-treatment tanks and the DAF tank, therefore be resolved, the council hereby requests funding from Indigenous Services Canada to undertake the rehabilitation of 2 pre-treatment tanks and 1 DAF tank to ensure continued operations. MCR 37 was signed and carried. The motion carried. Motion 3 was moved by Ted and seconded by Josh, whereas the Quinte Mohawk School on the Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory is a federally operated elementary school in the Ontario region, and whereas the recent water quality sampling indicated lead exceedances of the Canadian drinking water quality guidelines in various locations in the school, and whereas the recent First Nations Engineering Service Assessment Report dated of the system indicates the age of the school with piping utilizing soldier joints, pre-lead free soldiers are considered contributing factors. Therefore, it resolved the council hereby requests funding from Indigenous Services Canada to replace the Cleveland Mohawk School water supply system. MCR 38 was signed and carried and was moved by Josh and seconded by Ted that this meeting go into private, and we need a time there. Did you record the time, Shelley? So this meeting held. Let's just say 6:05 then for put a time in there then if that's okay with everybody. Okay, we should also mention that in resolution 2 that this is the first time that lead showed up in the test results somewhere. Because they have done tests for it before.
Chief, I had 6:06 going in private. So you were close.
What time did you have, Angela?
I put 6:06 in my notes.
6:06?
Yep, so you were close.
Okay, we'll put 6:06 in instead of 6:05. Okay, so can we have a motion to accept the minutes as corrected?
I have 2 corrections.
Go ahead, go ahead.
The first one is just at the top for our date, August 30th, 2023. I'm missing a 3 on mine.
Yeah, you're
Yeah, I just made that change and saved it, Stacia. Thanks.
Perfect. And then motion number 4, we're missing an A in Ted Miracle's last name.
Okay, thank you.
Try to pronounce that without the A.
And 6:06. So can we have a motion then to accept the minutes as corrected?
I can move.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Chief. Can I get clarity on motion number 1?
What is your question?
Okay, so who was the proponent? Was the person elected as electoral officer the proponent who submitted the package? Or is that a subcontractor of the eventual
She's an
recipient
employee of that,
employee?
yeah. She works for her.
But then if she works for her, isn't the person that put the submission in actually the electoral officer?
No, you have to appoint a person.
But a person.
A
So who-
person.
So if things went sideways, who do you go to? The person that submitted the bid?
You go to the electoral officer.
Okay. Do we have any requirements for
The same
O&M
as
insurance?
the same as last year. Requirement for insurance?
Is there a requirement for proponents to carry insurance, errors and omissions?
Can you speak to that, David or Angela? Is that part of the contract, errors and emissions insurance?
I don't know if it's part of the contract, Chief, but any business owner would generally take care of that on their own as part of their responsibilities. I can certainly follow up with the contractor and let you know if they carry it. I'm fairly certain they
Sure.
do.
Because my understanding was some of these business registrations that come to council, some of them have to have insurance and some of them don't. And so I don't know how the staff vet that. Or what vetting is done. But anyway, David, if you would undertake then to get an answer back for the question that's been raised at council this morning, that would be fine. We'll put that as an action item in the minutes and we'd request to report back to the next council meeting.
Just so I'm clear, what is the specific request for staff to look into?
To look at the insurance provisions of that's covered, that Leah would be covered for. If there's any error made, what are the insurance provisions?
That the electoral officer, Leah Brandt, would be covered?
Yeah, that whoever's working for, that they're covered by her insurance, and we need to know what that insurance provides for, so the council's informed.
It just seems really weird the way this is configured.
Well, again, I don't know what the situation is, so let's wait till we get an answer, Chris, so we know what it is.
Okay, so for next council, we'll have something in writing answering all the questions.
David said he would ask, and he will get us something in writing.
And if possible, because I'm not sure what's weird about this, so if possible, can we get any other, we're asking for answers to questions other than, does this company have insurance? Are there any other questions that should be, I guess, answered or pursued ahead of the next council meeting to maybe take away the awkwardness or for like I don't understand the air that's present right now as something shady going on.
No one's suggesting that. We're saying if something went sideways, though, who is responsible? It's like, we put out a bid for something, a general contractor in the community, he bids on it, but says, oh no, my employee is kind of the person. So if things ever went sideways, you get this kind of thing, and who's holding the bag?
So really, all they have to organize the election. They have to make sure that the election is posted within the timeframes, that the nominations are properly recorded, that they're moved and seconded, that it's recorded, that the community's informed who's nominated. The community has to be informed when the nominations are, so they record them. Once that process takes place, the electoral officer runs the election to make sure that only people who are members of the band vote, that are 18 years and older.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the bigger picture, Chief, so that whether it's an election or harvesting apples or plowing a field, at the end of the day, you put out a contract to do something, and this person bids, but they're giving it to this person over here.
I think it's
And
also
just
too
kind of
important.
But that person is not responsible for who council appoints. That's a council decision. But they're responsible for how the election is run, the nominations and the election.
Right. I guess I'm saying is Leah done? She didn't even put something forward. It's Kelly.
No,
put something
but
forward.
But she's a trained electoral officer, and I think that this is the point, is that
Yeah.
this is a list that's provided
By the department.
by the department of folks who are trained and who are eligible to conduct elections. There are few people from this community who are trained, and Leah Brandt happens to be one of them.
And Kelly is the other one that's trained.
Right. So it's irrelevant who the names are.
It is
If
relevant.
it's a situation that's created by not having
we can't,
insurance
Chris,
and-
we're not really at liberty to hire whoever we want. They have to be on the department's list as had
Correct.
taken the training.
Correct, yeah.
And when the training was posted, very, very few people from our community signed up for the training. And as a result, that's why there's a very short list of people from our community who took that training.
Right.
They
Now-
can't, they don't qualify to apply if their name is not on the approved list as having taken that training.
Right. And the question was more so liability issues.
So-
You're taking out a contract with A, but
so-
ultimately B is responsible.
So as long as we're under the Indian Band Council election regulations, we have to select somebody who's on that approved list, certified as taking the
right.
training.
And that's not the question at all, though. The question is
But we can't-
insurance and subcontracting and this, it doesn't seem too streamlined.
Well, the
And-
fact is there's a very short list of people that qualify that applied.
No, it's not, but it's not the list, Chief. It's the way it's the structure of the proposal. If it said, you know what, electoral officer is Kelly's company, great.
Yeah, it wouldn't
But
matter,
it's an
it wouldn't matter,
employee.
it wouldn't matter because at the end of the day, the vetting is done by whoever's on that approved list that's taken that training.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody can apply, but then they'll go and say, are they certified by the department that's taken the training to run an Indian Band
Right.
election?
But at the end of the day, we are responsible if something went sideways for picking somebody that, let's have the insurance question answered.
Picking
Well,
somebody that's been vetted and taken training and is qualified to be an electoral officer for Indian Act band elections. I would ask that if these questions that are persisting be formalized and communicated, just to hopefully address and not, I don't want to say dismiss, but I think address is the proper term.
Yeah, well-
Because I wouldn't want to have any type of doubt be placed or introduced or inferred of an upcoming election that is being organized or ran by a certified, accredited, vetted, and competent person. So I really would want to snuff any type of doubt or maybe, get rid of any doubt, because I wouldn't want to have the election called into question because
Yeah,
certain
well,
things
and-
were
and-
either left unanswered that maybe could be easily answered, or any doubt be introduced that really I've yet to see anything behind it other than questions.
Yeah,
So.
the request that was before council this morning and the action item is to answer the liability insurance issue. Is the person running the election covered under that policy, and if so, for what? But anyhow, was your intention to create doubt on the qualifications of the people?
No, it's not the qualifications. I'm surprised you keep bringing the qualification thing up. It's irrelevant. It's a mute issue. The issue is you put out an RFP, you get a response from an organization, a person, company, whatever, but our wording says, oh no, our electoral officer is this person, but that person is either an employee or a subcontractor of the company that actually is
She's an
getting it.
employee of.
So I would say employee and subcontractor are two different things, right?
Yeah, my understanding is that Leah is an employee of Kelly's business.
So even though we keep talking about like engineers and other company and building things as opposed to Indian Act elections, if I was to hire, for example, Smoke Architecture, and one of their employees is our project manager, right? I don't think anybody would have a problem saying we are appointing Joe Blow from.
No, you hire the firm, then they're whoever their employees are come to do the
So
job.
we
don't
got
pick-
we got a proposal from this company, and this is the person that we're appointing to be
It's
the
no different.
electoral officer.
It's no different than the way it ran last time, because Leah was the electoral officer the last election.
So,
It's the
like I
same.
said, if something was missed the last election and there was vulnerability or liability, potentially, if things were just for hypotheticals go sideways, I would ask again that those be addressed now to remove any doubt
Okay,
or to any inferring that there could be something that went sideways because certain things were left unchecked.
okay, do you have any concerns, Ted?
No, I don't have any.
Do you have any concerns, Josh?
I have no concerns, no, but
Do you have any concerns, Stacia? So,
None at all.
so
And just to note, we're on the meeting minutes and reviewing this.
So
at
anyhow,
this point in
we-
time. So this is a
Anyhow,
different item that's resulting from
that's
a business piece.
business arising from the minutes. So anyway, we have the request, there was a motion to accept these minutes as corrected. Is there a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second.
Ted? Motion's carried. Now, we will have business arising from the minutes. They've been accepted. We'll go back to the August 14th minutes. Is there any business arising from those minutes? That's pretty straightforward. So I'd say none. August 16th, is there any business or questions arising from the August 16th minutes?
So I have a couple.
Okay, go ahead, Stacia.
So motion number 6. So this is just to, if there's any update at all on the legislative review of the Cannabis Act and the expert panel. If there is any guidance as to when this meeting would be scheduled. I haven't seen anything. I know that the timeline is quite short. For some reason, I believe it's the end of this month, but I could be wrong. I'll go back to look. But is there an update on that?
Well, staff have been on holidays. That's one of the issues. And so David and Angela, can you coordinate a meeting with those parties for?
Yeah, Chief, I've been away, but I'll follow up.
So people haven't been available.
Chief, I think I asked Amzie to do it because she knew your schedule better than all of us, but
All
we
right.
can.
I
we can
will
follow
ask her
up.
to do it. Amzi's away. Her son has a dental appointment this morning, so she's away.
Oh, we'll get it set up.
Okay, that's great. So that was the first one. The second one was an action item. It was noted under motion number 25. And this is our discussion around the Active Transportation Fund. And we were looking for a report on what programs and services can apply to the fund.
Okay.
So
So,
wondering if
so
there-
Stacia, I can give you guys a quick verbal. So I did have a discussion and I did look into it before I went away, and it looks like it's something that we'd want to do under banned property. It comes down to the funding is targeted towards activities like walking paths, bike trails, and things like that, and that's essentially what it's for. When I was talking to Tom, we sort of agreed that the best approach would be is to access the funding that's available for like feasibility type work, to take a look at what properties we have that we would be able to put these sorts of paths in for public recreation, and get a report back, and then council can make a decision about whether or not you want to pursue the actual construction costs, because we'd be able to apply for that as the second part of the stream of funding. So that's the discussion I had before I went away. I don't know if Tom's had a chance to look any further into it or get a price for potentially having somebody do the feasibility work, but I'll follow up with him after this meeting and we'll have a discussion.
So David, mine is, I've sent a few emails to Tom and to Richard, and others. And the walking path and behind the church, a lot of the seniors that live at the Elders Lodge use that path. But there's a lot of brushing that needs to be done. The grass is not cut along the path. There's branches hanging down. People ride bikes up and through there. People walk their dogs up through there, but it needs maintenance. There's been no maintenance on that path since it's been constructed. And so if that could be, would address, that would be one place that could, where some improvements could be made. The same thing, people walk up around the cairn, and the trees need some trimming up in there. That's outstanding work. There are dead trees that need to be cut down in the cemeteries and parks. People do walk through there, and I'm always afraid that those dead trees are going to fall on somebody because they've been standing there dead for a few years. I raised these issues, but maybe that's something that could be addressed under this initiative, because they are walking places.
Yeah, for sure, Chief. I'll follow up with the government to find out if that would be an
So we
eligible
could apply,
activity.
yeah.
I imagine that it would be, but I don't know for certain, because when I read through it, it sounded like it was talking about new construction and the feasibility of doing that stuff. But just leave it with me for a couple more days and I'll get back to you.
Okay, and so if they could even maybe put some tar and chip on that walking path down and behind the church, that would help, and bring some more fine crushed gravel and stuff like that, because people do walk up in there and do brushing along the sides and trim the trees. It's all grown over on the side with a lot of brush.
Yeah, that all sounds like very good ideas, Chief. Thanks.
Okay, so if that could be, maybe we could apply for that. People used to fish off of the ferry dock. I don't know if that qualifies or not. What's the deadline on this here? Is there a deadline? Do we have to wait till next year?
I don't have the intake date in front of me, Chief. I have to look it up.
Okay. Now, Richard did tell me that they did receive some funding to cut down the dead trees in the parks and cemeteries. They did cut some of them down for the powwow, and Michael and Richard did cut down some of the dead ash trees, but some of the ones they need to hire a contractor because of the size of the trees. But the other thing that needs to go out from the health side is there's something called blastomycosis. And it's from, you get it from, it's a bacteria that comes from rotting tree bark. And there are people that burn wood in the community. And so we should put something out. There's a number of cases on reserves in Ontario, I think 58 cases so far. It can make people very sick, and a few cases, it's killed some of the people. So there needs to be some information going out from a health advisory about people that burn wood. It's about rotting bark on trees. There's a bacteria. It's called blastomycosis.
Actually, Chief, I'm pretty sure it's a fungus, but we can look into putting out some information, and that's something that I've had family members and friends that have been infected with that up north, so I'm aware of what it is. I'll have a chat with the folks over at CWC and see what kind of messaging we can put out there. And it's not isolated to like tree bark. I mean, it can be transmitted by animals too. So if it's in the area, it's something we definitely should put some information out to the public.
Yeah, because Chief Brian Perot from up north, he had one of his relatives die from it. But in our leadership call, there was a health advisory about blastomycosis being on the rise on reserves in Ontario.
Yeah, it can make people extremely sick. It generally, especially when it becomes like a lung infection as a result of it. So for sure, I'll talk to Susan and Brittany and see what kind of public statement we can put out for people so that they're aware.
We need people to be aware of it. So they should probably, and what precautions should they take, whether if they're going to be handling, wood and stuff like that? Should they wear gloves, and what precautions should be taken? Okay.
Yep, for sure. Thanks, Chief.
So anyway, any other questions on the minutes, business arising from the August 16th minutes? Stacia, do you have additional items?
I have one more. So thanks for that, David, just in terms of the active transportation fund. I think that's pretty, I think it's important just to clarify whether it's new construction or existing, and then we can determine what opportunities we have there. In terms of motion number 29, this is just an update on the request to increase the Iroquois Caucus MBQ's portion of the annual contribution. So wondering if there's an update on that in terms of that financial report.
We still haven't got an up-to-date financial report from the coordinator. We got a partial one at the last meeting, but there's supposed to be a more detailed one coming forward to help us and make that informed decision.
And which coordinator? Sorry, I wasn't aware that.
Well, they were to hire a coordinator. I don't know if they've done that yet, but I understand they had somebody in mind. my understanding was that when the coordinator's in place, we'll get an updated report.
Okay. All right. And those are the only points that I had from business arising.
So Akwesasne currently is handling the finances for the Iroquois caucus, so maybe they'll provide it too. Is there any other questions or business arising from the minutes? Chris, do you have any? Ted? Josh? Okay, those questions have been answered or will be looked into. We'll now move to the 16th of August, the 30th of August. Is there any business arising from those minutes? So both of those projects are well in hand with discussions for funding with the department. The department's going to fund these projects. So I guess it's a matter of Todd will give us updates as the work progresses.
Yeah, I think just to capture our previous conversation on business arising for this piece is the questions that Chris had just in regards to insurance. So that'll be a follow-up item, business arising from the August 30th.
That's correct. So the department, Todd and I have been involved with the capital funding officers of the department and Nico Paul, and they have money and they're going to pay the costs of these projects. Okay. So that's done, the business rising. List of council, I need a motion to attend the following meetings. The September 19th Coup Leadership Council meeting in Ottawa, and that's will be the Chiefs Leadership Council, and I attend because I have I chair the Chiefs Committee on Housing and Infrastructure, so they've invited me to attend their Leadership Council meetings. It's normally just a meeting of the PTO Grand Chiefs, but they've made room for me at the table because I have that extensive portfolio. So then there's the Chiefs Committee on Housing, Health and Coordination Unit. That'll be in Sault Ste. Marie. There's this meeting that's going to take place for the Iroquois Caucus Chiefs in Calgary, Alberta. I did ask if there'd be a Zoom option, but it doesn't look like there is. And the Grand Chiefs are going, at least they've communicated that. Then there's the Chiefs Council meeting on the 23rd and 24th. In Niagara Falls, and then there's the Data Sovereignty Conference at 24th and 25th in Toronto. So those are the motions. We may have another Chiefs Committee on Housing meeting if once the Chiefs of Ontario coordinate the date from the provincial officials. We're still waiting for a new date because the Minister of Housing is now Paul Calandra. Stephen Clark has been replaced, so we were going to meet with the ADM, but now that they have a new minister, we'll likely meet with the new minister to get the Doug Ford commitment on housing, capital money moving. Stacia?
So just to note, I've been asked to attend the Coup Leadership Council meeting, as well as the Métis Rights Assertion demonstration as Justice Portfolio holder for the Chiefs of Ontario. So I will be attending and my expenses will be paid by them directly.
Justice Portfolio, okay, noted. So Stacia will need a motion to, she's going to carry the Justice Portfolio for the Chiefs of Ontario?
It's an existing.
Or for AI?
Yeah, no, it's for Chiefs of Ontario.
For Chiefs of
So
Ontario?
it's an existing appointment and that'll be discussed at the Leadership Council meeting on Tuesday.
Okay. Okay, noted. Is there a motion then to approve these meetings for myself and Stacia? But the chiefs are going to pay you for that, or are we paying you for that?
No one's paying me. My expenses are covered by Chiefs of Ontario.
Okay,
It's not a paid.
so we don't need a motion for you
Role,
to
position.
attend that. That's something you're
No,
doing.
it's just to note so that you're aware that I
Okay.
am going and that there will be a conversation on that
Okay.
Tuesday about the future of that portfolio.
Okay.
When you say that portfolio, what do you mean by that portfolio?
So it's a justice portfolio. And so when I was Deputy Grand Chief, that was one of the portfolios that I had. And right now, there's a conversation in terms of the future planning for the justice work that's taking place right now, who will hold that portfolio. So it actually is, it shouldn't be a surprise, but council members and communities can hold portfolios at the Chiefs of Ontario should their community decide. So there's going to be a conversation about whether or not they will identify another portfolio holder. But in the interim, I am still technically the portfolio holder until the Leadership Council at the Chiefs of Ontario makes a determination.
So it was the AIAI vice chief that, in your prior capacity as vice chief, you held that position because you're the vice chief?
No, that's not how it works. It has to be through the Leadership Council, and so those names are put forward. So it's not by a process of immediate transition that folks would take on the work.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more complex than that.
I don't think Brandon wants to do it either.
And that's at least the direction that I've received, both from Chiefs of Ontario and from Grand Chief Joel Abram, that they would like me to continue in that capacity. And so I think that that's a future conversation once I have a chat with folks next week.
Okay. Anyway, anyway, that we discussed at the Leadership Council, so that will be on the agenda for our
I'll move,
leadership
Chief.
coun- Okay.
Sorry, up there. I'll move to support.
Moved by State Chris, who'll second it?
I'll second that, Chief.
Now, one of the things I'm concerned about is the Minister Patty Hadju intends to table legislation concerning the new water regulations. And of course, the money part of it is, the money bills are never, hardly ever part of the legislation about the regulations. That's a separate process in budget preparation. And as long as the money that to operate water treatment plants and sewage treatment plants is in the realm of discretionary spending on the government under grants and contributions, we lack certainty about the funding will be adequate to to cover the rising expenses of operating these systems. And so one of the things that's necessary is that there has to be an understanding in the law about the government's responsibility to fund these projects. Now, one of the things that happened is that Bing is Irving LeBlanc, we call him Bing, is no longer working at the FN, much to our dismay and disapproval. Linda DeBossi was the chief from Kajing, and she's no longer, lost the election a week ago Saturday, and so she was the lead on the water file. I was concerned about it, so I phoned the regional chief, and we had a meeting, a Zoom call about it. And the new acting national chief, we were told, was planning a trip to Australia, and the person that they had appointed was going to be accompanying the national chief to Australia, and we didn't really approve of that because, this legislation is going to be tabled. Bing did have regular meetings with the chiefs on where things were at with that whole thing and what the government's responses were to the issues that were raised by the chiefs. And so right now there has been no accountability from the EFN, and so right now the only lead that's been appointed so far is Phil Fontaine. And so it's a great concern to the Chiefs of Ontario that where the status of this whole issue. So we'll be having another discussion to find out who they're going to appoint to take charge of that file on behalf of the Ontario region. And it's important because there still is a high number of unresolved boil water advisories.
So was Phil
on reserves in Ontario.
Was Phil Fontaine appointed by the AFN to take a lead?
They were.
Okay.
And the chiefs, Roseanne Archibald, when she was the regional chief, she had the housing and infrastructure portfolio, and water was discussed there as well, and along with the regional chief from Manitoba, Kevin Hart. So they needed a couple of people, so they appointed Phil Fontaine and Linda DeBossi. She's an engineer, and so that's why she was appointed. So they may ask her, the Chiefs of Ontario may ask her to continue in that role. I don't know, because right now it's at a critical time to be changing, to leave it vacant for the Ontario region. And I don't know how well versed Phil Fontaine is in the issues in the Ontario region, but that needs to be taken into account. And I guess one of the other items is what immediate investments are going to take place to resolve the BWAs for these reserves that are still in the Ontario region that have BWAs. Our BWAs for our publicly operated systems have all been resolved now with the watershed, with the road shed being hooked up to the water system. So that was the last one. But there are BWAs on private wells because the BWA policy only applied to publicly operated systems that were funded by Indigenous Services Canada. And a few years ago, when we went to I think it was 2017, when we went to a meeting at the Toronto airport, we were not eligible to get any water because we didn't have any publicly operated systems. So when we got that rectified when we had that meeting with Jane Philpott. I was surprised when David Didlock had that meeting that we were not on the list to receive anything because we were not under a funded, because the pumping station at the airport was not a government funded water treatment system. So we had to do a lot of political work to get that corrected to make our community eligible for water. Stacia?
You're raising a number of really important points, Chief, just around the political work that's taking place and the conversations that you're having and in the spaces that you're in. So as a holder sitting on a number of committees, working on these portfolios, and I think it would serve maybe the remainder of this council and then your new council over the next 2 years is to either, well, I think there's a couple options, but I think to have an active discussion on political matters. Our regular meetings, we don't have the opportunity to talk about some of these political issues, and a lot of them are stemming from these meetings. So even just looking back at our previous agenda item here on our meetings outside the territory, I think it would be super helpful, I think, for us as a council, and again, moving forward to have some of these materials made available on the drive. So the agenda, if we have questions,
Yeah,
if we can offer any sort of feedback on that, but also to debrief. So when you're having these conversations and when, obviously some action items do come up or things that we need to consider, that we can have an active discussion on it. So I would propose that if we could have those materials.
I can update you on the extent that our committee is involved, but oftentimes there's a lack of feedback from the people that are at the meeting table.
For sure, but even just the agenda or briefing notes that we can
tell
have
you
them
what
on
I
the
do.
drive.
I can tell you what I do is I get the information, I do circulate it to the senior executive and to all the members of council.
No, I would suggest that we have it on the drive so it lives somewhere, right?
Yeah,
I
okay.
think we all get so many emails, but it would be great to have those agenda items or any sort of briefing packages on the drive in its own folder so that we can access those. And like I said, and any sort of support that you need or that we can offer.
The chiefs, the people who go from the staff, from the chief's office, along with the person that's charged with having the lead on the file, needs to have a reporting system back to the chiefs so that we can update our councils. And we have raised these issues with the staff there.
Mm-hmm.
I think Stacey's talking about more
But I can
more
tell-
discussion than just an update.
Yeah,
And actually
but
have a
I can
informed
tell you,
discussion.
on our housing and infrastructure file, we are going to meet with all the senior people in government to put a plan forward. Doug Ford did ask us for a plan on how to address capital needs on reserve, which will care new build, repairs to existing structures. So we still have to have that conversation. But because of the issue with the Greenbelt, the turmoil there, that meeting has been delayed at the request of the chief's office because they didn't really want to deal with Stephen Clark and be tainted with the scandal that's going on there. So they decided to at least deal with the deputy minister. So Chris Hoyos is coordinating a date for that with government officials, but we do know what our message is going to be. Okay. But my concern is that there is nobody representing the Ontario region on that file that's been appointed. So I brought it to the attention of the regional chief and the staff there, and it'll be probably discussed at the leadership council as well.
Where's OFNTSC in all of this?
Uh,
Should they not be taking a more of a leadership role?
Well, they act as advisors, they have their input, but again, they're not the lead. So the lead is the AFN, those two AFN appointees meet with Patty Hadju. And so the minister, Patty Hadju was asked by the AFN to get an expanded mandate on the water legislation to address the concerns that were raised by the chiefs in our meeting. And one was flexibility and the regulation, because we have to adopt a regulation. You can either adopt the provincial regulations, the federal drinking water guidelines, or you can have a hybrid combination, the highest standards of a mix of both. But you have to have a standard on how you're going to operate these systems, and that's a council decision. So what I've asked the staff, the technical people to do, is to do a comparative analysis on all of the testing parameters for these the things that are tested with public drinking water, and to sort of do a hybrid draft or something, so that the communities would have something to look at. It's yeah, it's on the agenda. Yeah. So that's where things are at. So we need somebody there that's attending those meetings representing the Ontario interests. So I don't know who that's going to be yet. So who will make a motion then to attend these meetings?
I think I did, Chief.
Chris, and who else will second it?
No, Josh seconded.
Josh. Chris and Josh. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. It's been recommended that council approve to sign the dispatch agreement with St. Catharines Fire. The city of Belleville will be closing their dispatch center effective December 31st this year, so we have to appoint a new person to provide that service for our fire department. And it's recommended and supported by the fire chief that St. Catharines Fire be our dispatch service. Is there a motion to approve signing the agreement?
I'll move, Chief.
Moved by Chris, who will second it?
I'll second that, Chief.
Josh? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried.
I just have a question regarding the agreement and the cost. And maybe, David, this is something that you can look into. I'm just curious to see the comparison between this new contract with St. Catharines in comparison to Belleville over the years.
So Stacia, on that, I did have a chat with Scott. I don't have the exact numbers, but my understanding from talking to him is that it's actually cheaper.
Oh.
We're going to be provided a cheaper service, and it's locked in for a longer period. So when Scott and I did talk about it before he put the item together to go to council, it sounded like in every way that this agreement is better, and we're going to continue to obviously have 911 services, which we need to, right? So I'll get the exact figure. I'll ask him for the figures we were paying to Belleville and then what's going to be paid for the future. But it sounds to me from talking to him that it's all positive to do this.
Okay, no, that's great, because I did see that the contract is for a 15-year period, which is quite long. So without, I just didn't have a basis of comparison, but if there's a cost savings, then that's amazing. Thanks.
Yep. No, I'll get you the exact figure.
So just an FYI, bullet number 12 says that commencing on the 10th anniversary of the term, the parties agree that either party shall have the right to terminate this agreement for any purpose whatsoever by giving
You
a
have to speak
24
into the
month.
mic. We're not able to hear
Oh, I
you.
think she can hear. She can hear. Shall have the right to terminate this agreement for any purpose whatsoever by giving 24-month prior written notice to the other party. So I think that's the only O in this agreement. Is everybody comfortable with that? That's all. So, just need to be aware of that. That's all.
Right.
Well, we need a service provider, and if that's
Yep.
who's available to provide the
I'm not
service,
questioning
we
the
can't do that
service
without
provider,
service.
I'm not questioning the amount of the contract. Just want to make sure that we're aware that the only oath that's provided in the agreement is this bullet number 12. So.
David, do you have any comments on the issue raised by Ted?
No, I acknowledge it. As far as I understand from talking to Scott, there's really no other provider available to us. So it's either we go with St. Catharines or we kind of go with nothing. The 10-year clause doesn't really bother me because generally speaking, 911 services and dispatch are pretty much a standard around the province. And I think that clause is really just in there so that if any of us don't like the agreement after 10 years, considering that it's going to cost us less than Belleville, you know, we can walk away. Do I have a concern about it? Not from talking to Scott. I can follow up with him, Ted, and just ask for his opinion on it. But he was very positive about the whole thing when we did talk about it.
It's not so much a concern, David. I just think people need to be aware of that clause, because I remember the talks a few years ago was that we were going to try and develop our own right here, right? And use that was going to be part of our plan, long-term plan for our fire department.
Yeah, you know what, Ted, maybe what we can do is I'll talk to Scott about it. Maybe he can go back to St. Catharines and ask them to reduce that to 5 years, you know, because 5 years is a reasonable window for anybody to be able to terminate. And again, I'm not saying that I have a concern with the 10-year period, but if we did end up going our own way to do our own dispatch, you're correct. We'd want to be able to have that out clause sooner than later. So let me just explore that a little bit further.
Yeah, I think I'd like that, David, if you could.
So David,
Yeah, no problem.
I have signed the agreement here in the folder, so you can, if there, it has to be amended, you can put it back on the council agenda.
Yeah, Chief, I'll talk to Scott about it today, like once we're done our meeting, and I'm sure it'll be as simple as a phone call. And I mean, they're either going to say they're agreeable to it or they're not, and it is what it is, right? But just leave it with me and I'll get back to you. And if they make the amendment to the agreement, I guess I'll just ask the table, can you guys give me a motion that you will approve it in either state, and I will that way I can sign it.
We already passed a motion to sign the agreement, so if there's any amendments, you will have to just deal with that before you send it out.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
I don't read that to be stuck. I read that to be an opportunity for, if for whatever reason, like I said, there'd be no need for a discussion at the 10-year mark. But I don't read that to be that there couldn't be a discussion, that if 3 years from now there was a funding opportunity for us to self-operate or to take over our own, I think there'd be an opportunity for a conversation. I don't read that to be that this is a must for 10 years. I feel that.
Well,
This-
if you
this
look
is-
below, though, it talks about giving them 2 years notice, so after
But they're-
10 years, so you're talking about 12 years, really.
You know, there can be car accidents. And
Yeah, I would mean this to be
You can
that
have a top,
this is a scheduled 10th anniversary meeting.
the
This
way
is
I
a-
look at
this
it,
is
Josh,
scheduled.
you could
Yeah.
cancel that 3 years, but you're gonna hold them for 12, at least, the way I would read that. But I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. That's just the way I read it, though. It's not that you can't opt out, but you're still gonna hold them, because they're gonna budget for that length of time, I believe, if I read that correctly, but.
well, the budget is whatever council provides, and if they get very little money from the Department
There,
of Fire,
right there. It's right in front of them, what they want, what they're asking for, so,
Okay.
which is fine. I just the FYI, that's all,
okay.
because that was part of our long-term plan one time. He may, it probably
Yeah.
should pass 12 years anyway, but who knows?
No,
I don't-
Ted, those are all good questions and good points. And I'm not sure which way it is. And Josh, I totally hear what you're saying. That's kind of how I read it myself. But we'll follow up.
If it does spell it out where it's like, if you terminate it sooner, but again, I feel like maybe it's not, maybe it's adding something to the agreement where it's
Yeah.
not, you add the only reason why we would go somewhere else is if it was internally. So maybe that's
Yes.
a wrinkle you add in to where all this is still good. You're not going to shop somewhere else. You might just become independent.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%. That makes sense.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, leave it with me and Scott. I'll talk to Scott after this meeting and then we'll follow up with them.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
So we're on.
No problem.
Item number 5. So M&R, under their duty to consult, they're going to conduct a riverine fishery assessment program in the Napanee River north of the dam that's there. They're going to assess the population of fish, which will include walleye, sauger, northern pike, smallmouth bass, yellow perch in the Moira, Napanee, and Salmon Rivers north of the reserve boundaries over the next 3 years. The data collected will be used to determine the suitability of current walleye size limit regulations and support future management decisions of Zone 18 of the MNR. And so the map of what that area is there is included in your package. So they're looking for support from the council to acknowledge the letter, recommend MNR Jeff Cordy. He provided the attached acknowledgement letter. He acknowledged their Programs intend the recognition of our traditional territory and treaty rights and in their consultation.
I'll move
Motion
that,
to-
Chief.
Chris? Because the fish can be impacted by climate change with water temperatures and all that sort of thing. So it's important that you, the whole ecological, biological aspect of it be looked at for fish health and all that sort of thing. Let's move by Chris, who will second it.
I can second.
Stacia? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, so the motion will be to approve to sign the letter to Jeff Cote, management biologist, Kemptville, Kingston District, Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources, dated September the 6th, for the riverine fishery assessment program.
Maybe just clarification for folks, where it says the data collected will be used to determine the suitability of current walleye size limit regulations to support future management decisions for Zone 18. So that's the physical size of the fish that people would be.
Well, that they're recommending that it's they put out an advisory, like for example, pregnant women shouldn't eat fish more than 23 inches. So if those advisories have to change, usually what they do is they put out an advisory on if people catch the fish and eat them, there's not much they can do, but there can be health issues, there can be concentrations of certain chemicals in the size of the fish. So really that's to inform the public if there's any health issues.
I think there's two parts to it, Chief. I think the first part is what you're talking about, and the second part is we're talking about the actual, there's two things. There's the physical size of the fish limits as well as the, and I don't know if this is captured there, but the number of fish that people are allowed to take based on the regulations. Those things are being determined for the rest of the public in Ontario as opposed to the folks at the Tyendinaga Mohawk territory because they have a traditional right to hunt and fish. So as far as I know, unless the species becomes endangered, it doesn't really become into question for the Bay of Quinte. But that's I think, Josh, that's what they're talking about when they say size limits.
And I think
Is
that's
the
what I'm
physical
talking
size.
about.
Yeah.
Is that clarification that you just offered?
It's not
is that-
it's a size limit.
Well, and again, not that anybody at this table or in this community is exempt from being stewards of the land, but these types of regulations would apply, these types of M&R regulations would apply to not specifically.
No,
us. It would be for-
because our right has to overrides all that.
I'm just asking for that distinction to be made.
Yeah, our right what is recognized is our right for sustenance.
Exactly.
Just potential conflict.
Okay, you're voting against it?
Oh, no,
Okay.
I moved to.
Okay, if you need a break, Chris, we'll take it.
No, the next guy, potential conflict. So I'm gonna move it.
Oh, okay.
Just give me a shot.
Okay, so we'll go to the next item then, which is the right-of-way agreement. And this is to deal with the issue that Nicole Storms attended council to address, I believe. No? What is it? So who is getting the right-of-way? Whose property is being affected? Who? Obviously, Chris Miracle's property is affected because he's, I know where it is, but I don't know who owns lot 20E and lot 20K. To visualize whose property is being, who are we giving a right of way to?
So lot 20K belongs to Mohawk's Bay, Quinte? Is that, like, I don't understand this class.
Bring Lisa in, please.
It came from Todd, I think, didn't it?
No, but she'll know who, or her and Amy will know whose land is affected by this. What are we doing?
You guys understand the request? Like, okay.
And we're agreeing to extend the road. How many feet?
Well, that's the other, that's part two of mine. West
12 meter, give or take.
No, it says
Isn't it?
down farther there, if it, I lost it.
We're providing a degree of 12 meter foot right of way as shown on the highlighted sketch. For the purpose of ingress to lot 20E. Concession A further, in the event of housing development occurs on lot 20 concession A and requires a physical road for occupants to safely egress, agree to extend the road as delivered and subject to MBQ staff coordination and available resources.
That's the part that I'm confused with, the road extension on that. It's how much, how long is that road, how big is that road?
Okay, Lisa, there's an item on the agenda, the right-of-way agreement. I presume you've been looked at this?
Yeah, just one sec till I get myself situated. I just grabbed
We just need to understand what we're doing here.
I can only speak to the one portion of it as Todd added in, sorry, this one is not working. As Todd.
No, we can hear you good, Lisa. We can hear you.
And who are the parties to this agreement?
That is, I believe Kenneth Elwood Branch at the end
Okay.
of Hickory.
So shouldn't they be on, their names be on who the agreement is between the band and them?
No, because it's a right-of-way agreement and it's between the parcels. It always remains with the parcel regardless of who the person is.
So we're just creating a public road right away there.
So 20K belongs to the band then?
Yes,
That whole,
Okay,
yes.
because is it public or is it private? This right away?
Anybody who needs access to that parcel.
So it's the holder of that parcel land. It's okay.
Yes,
And for the moment, it's Ken Brandt.
yes.
20F1 is what we're talking about, that parcel that they need access to?
So shouldn't the agreement be between the band and Ken Brandt and his heirs and successors?
No,
No?
no, because the next property CP holder may not be his heir or success. Like he transfers, it's always with the parcel. Correct.
Okay, and I guess with the easement to service a private residential property, so then it is a public right of way. It's instead of a private right of way. Otherwise, if it's private, we shouldn't be maintaining it or building anything there. If it's public, then we should.
I guess I don't understand your question.
Well, I guess if this is a if it's only the people that own that lot that have the right to use that road, the holders of that CP, then that's private.
Anybody who needs access
Because we don't
to that.
we don't maintain or build private driveways or public roads. We maintain public roads that the public can travel on.
Sorry, I'm just pulling it up.
Oh, it's for lot 20E,
Yes, I was just trying to pull up
Okay.
my file here,
not
sorry.
20F. Okay, that's because 20F has access from the road.
If it's a
Right.
public road that's easement and we're building a public road, I totally agree with that. But if we start building what's considered to be a private road that only a limited number of people can use it by ownership of that lot, then that's a different issue.
So is 20E landlocked right now then? Is that the issue?
Not on paper.
Not on paper?
Not on paper. The road is not physically there though. So, sorry, I don't know how I can share this. 1 minute. I need to get into Google Earth. Sorry, you just caught me in the middle of something.
No worries. Take your time.
Okay, I think I would have to have you come over here and look at Google Earth. Sorry about that. This is not. Okay.
I'm gonna end up walking right on that screen. I'm gonna go around it.
Sorry, I walked across it. So, right here is, I'll wait to Stacia gets over here too. So this is 20E over here. Here is Hickory Lane. As it comes down, you can see where it is actually road constructed. And then you can see where the actual road allowance is still over to here, over to this end, but there is no road constructed there.
Okay.
MBQ owns this one, and that is what we actually would need to provide him a right of way across. So not only across there, I think we would need to come up a little bit in this parcel K so he can access his property. So you can see that where this road comes down, it's actually providing the road allowance on the screen is providing access to this
So it is
parcel
kinda
down
down
here.
Yep.
Well,
Or is that a little bit?
it hits the ridge road, so it's not technically landlocked.
Okay, is there high point poles along there? You take electricity down there? That used to be side by side, Green Hills Farm? I thought there was an easement, there was a man bought the road down.
That is along this north-south road
Oh, okay,
allowance,
so that's further west,
further east.
east, okay.
Yeah, so you can see Hickory Lane is not constructed all the way to what is there for. Yeah, ends there and goes up to Carm 06.
If we were to keep going.
If you were to keep going, it would take you down to this parcel here, which is why we say you need access across 20K, which MBQ owns right there, because we would have to make that a little bit wider to make
That's that corner, right?
access there. No, it just ends.
Zoom in.
If I zoom in there.
And so we own, and so what did we do? Did we put an access road across, what does that, when we December that property, what does it do to the part on the base side? To make it,
It's already been severed, chief. There's already provision for a road there.
Well, saying is that doesn't give access to that.
No, which is why it references 20K in the right-of-way agreement, because we would actually, Todd would be required to make, or not
So
required,
why
he
does-
would need
so why does
access.
Chris have a?
Chris has a conflict of
You'd have to
interest.
ask him, I
You would have to ask him.
He doesn't own any property.
He owns property beside that, so I don't know if he would then be asking for access.
Does it
As
have
well.
access to his property by doing that?
No,
Then how do they have access to his property? How does it, if there's no road access to it?
What's that other, isn't this other road one?
that is the road allowance there.
So there-
So they'd have to come in.
So unless, I'm confused, chief. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So Chris, you said owns the property where you highlighted, right? You said he owns that property.
He owns this property.
And where's the road going to? Just show it again.
I can't touch the screen. The road is gonna have to come down here at some portion and then veer off into the corner over here
For Ken Brand.
for Ken Brandt.
What did you say the proposal?
It's how many?
Uh,
See, where is this? It's 36 feet of road. This 12-meter one. Where that we did the road.
sorry, was it in the package that,
It was.
okay, one second. That came from, Todd. I just pulled it back up here. Oh, okay, so that is why then. Todd is proposing, or infrastructure, I shouldn't say Todd, is proposing that you come down. Hickory Road is going to have to be extended. So this is the corner where, Carm is up here. You're gonna have to,
Well, he sold that.
no, this is Carm's house
Okay.
in this little corner here. Hickory is going to have to continue on, and then they're gonna build a road, potentially proposed area required for road frontage up here and it looks like it would be a turnaround, that would hit the property that Chris owns.
Okay, and where are we building the road?
If I go back to Google Earth, it would come down here. Let me use the pen. The road, according to what infrastructure has provided, is going to continue along here and then be up here and have a turnaround.
But where are we building the road? We building on just the road allowance or?
No, you'll be on the road allowance as well as MBQ property.
On MBQ property? Okay.
Yes, which would then provide access to Ken as well as the piece of property that is held by Chris. Which is now,
And
I'm
how-
understanding why
and
he,
how many feet up is that? To get to the both properties?
infrastructure says it's,
I mean, I get that the band's responsible to build Hickory Road, because that's a road, the MBQ road.
that would be a question for infrastructure
Is
chief.
that 36 feet we're asking us to build?
I
Oh,
do
that's what I
not,
was gonna say. is
I do
that
not
think
know.
you
That's
should
infrastructure.
add
I'm
this to
sorry.
that discussion.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
The discussion about road extensions.
Oh.
There's a list of them. I think that this would be good to have
Agreed.
included in that discussion.
Yeah, there's a number of road extensions that we
Oh,
have to
okay.
approve. So there's Eli's Road, that road that the Baptistes want us to extend that. It's
There's a list of roads
north of
that
your
have
grandmother's
been
house,
requested for.
beside your grandmother's house,
okay,
Shenville.
I'm unaware of that list, so that doesn't actually fall to my
There-
department.
And then that lane that goes down beside of where Freeman's Barn used to be on Ridge Road, they want that built up because people bought lots in there to build houses. Witches Lane, they want that extended. There's been a number of them. Eli's Road, they want an extension there, and that road in Shannonville.
Okay,
So this agreement commits us to building a road. To
it-
extend the road, agree to extend the road.
uh,
So I think I'd rather, like you say, I'd rather defer this until we have that discussion. Because to me, it looks like it's,
We should defer and have Todd here and.
it
just,
looks like to me, it's a road extension.
it,
request to me. Not just a right of
It's
way.
not just a right of way.
No,
That's what
it's
that-
road
no,
extension.
Seems
request,
like.
So,
Todd did include subject to MBQ staff coordination and available resources.
Yep.
In that section, he had that part included.
But when you tie the two together, creating the easement is one thing, but the rebuilding a road should be a separate agreement.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed.
So motion to defer this?
yeah.
Is there a seconder to defer?
Well, one question I have is, would you be able to have the discussion for the actual construction of the road? Would the right-of-way agreement prompt this to be in that discussion? Or can you just have that discussion as?
Well, you can create the right of way, the easements and the right of way, all that can be done, but the building of the road, you need the costs, you need to know the implications of these other roads that Josh has brought up. Are we gonna open up these other road allowances?
That I brought up, no.
Or-
No, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if council is agreeable to the right of way, but yet to be determined where it fits in that capital
Yeah.
plan for which roads get extended, which construction takes place.
Okay, we have growth pressures because right now a lot of people do not have a place to build houses. And so they're asking for that right away beside of, north of Bernice's house in Shannonville, as well as there was a request to extend Marks Road a little bit further west. The Slash Road east of Milltown Side Road down in that area there, toward the other Slash Road. There's been requests from people to build down in there, Witches Lane and Gypsy Lane.
And Eli's Lane.
But I guess my question is
A lot of
in
requests.
in respect to that large list that the chief has named all those places, would formally adding this to the list makes sense.
And
Like,
Eli-
what would be the step one to
Eli's
get
lane.
to the point
To,
where
to,
you're?
to speak to that need, so if we're, as we're actively pursuing funding opportunities or demonstrating the need, because the chief has said there is limited lands, and what lands are available, people don't have access to, with this right of way, I guess, elevate it to now be
That's
part of the,
Part of the list.
Okay,
part of the list.
what we need to lobby is we need to know what we're doing. What is it that council supports and what's recommended by staff? We need to know an engineered estimate on what it will cost to build these roads. We need to know whether or not any of the surplus material that with this rock and stuff that we have piled over at the airport can be used to help, limit the construction costs. There's a lot of administrative work that needs to be done to get to that point. And so I would do a list of all of the road extensions that we've been asked to look at and get some costs.
I believe Todd's working on that.
And so we would have to work with F&ES or an
Yeah, yeah.
engineering company to give us a price, and I guess we'll see what we can do, because right now we have growth pressures. There's pressures to address housing, and you can't address housing if people don't have any place to build. Then with that, we'll include water line extensions and hydro
You
extensions.
can't build houses if there's no roads to the
electrification.
house.
So the whole capital part has to be determined with the hydro, the water, the drainage, all of that.
So that's the big picture. In this,
Get back to your request.
this,
This isn't landlocked though. If this was landlocked, I'd see the urgency. But it being not landlocked, right?
Yeah, sorry, I'm like questioning myself, so I do want to double
Oh,
check.
it might be landlocked?
I'm
okay.
not certain, but
Okay.
If it is, I'd definitely fix.
So
for sure.
maybe the agreement itself, I mean, and I'm just, reading through it, maybe perhaps people would feel more comfortable instead of that paragraph that says further in the event that housing development should occur, that we agree to extend the road. Maybe we eliminate that portion and focus on the right-of-way agreement piece, and then that could be captured in a note, or we just don't need to capture that at this point in time for the right-of-way piece. But I think this is dependent on Lisa double checking as well.
sorry. And if
Yeah,
I
no, it's
don't
a-
get a response right, I'm just second guessing myself. I was unprepared.
Yeah,
Well-
because if housing approves a mortgage, there's an implied obligation to build the road. It's
I'm just
based
gonna
on
go back-
housing development approves.
the proposed agreement,
I didn't know that.
where it says, we hereby agree to grant to the certificate possession holders of lot 20, concession A, 4673, a 12-meter so right away shown as highlighted on the sketch, on the attached sketch based on Canland Survey's record plan number 66807 for the purpose of ingress and egress to lot 20, concession A, 4673, period.
Period.
If that was the agreement, is there an issue with that?
Yeah, that part I think we should approve, but the other part needs assessment.
Any other thoughts?
If it's landlocked, absolutely. We have to fix those things.
If
If
it's
it's not
not-
landlocked,
But
it's worth the discussion though. If that's the best way to, approach that piece of property then, or whatever. Maybe there's a better, instead of trying to extend that. That's a conversation with.
So you've made a motion
with
to
Todd.
defer. Do you want to qualify that with defer until?
I'd say that it
Did-
needs two separate agreements.
Yeah, defer to be brought back as two separate agreements, in which time, I guess, definition.
I understand the
Can
one
we
agreement.
clarify?
What's the second agreement?
Yeah, what is the
Understand
second
what's the
agreement?
second
I'm trying to.
Oh, it's not a second agreement, the second piece, which would be,
Okay.
Oh,
The
the
road-
road extension.
the road
To add
extension.
Got
that
it.
to the-
which is part of that
Yeah,
larger discussion.
that's capital planning, and that's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, not second agreement, but.
Sorry, he does own the property. There's 3 parcels he owns to the York,
Okay.
or Ridge Road, sorry.
But they're two separate parcels though?
Yeah, but because he owns them
Yeah.
all the way down, that parcel is not landlocked.
But if you wanted to sell that one parcel,
Yes.
and what's stopping someone
Can you
from
landlock
doing that?
yourself?
I would prefer not to do any transfers where somebody is physically landlocked. legally, you can, they have to acknowledge that the property is landlocked and they do not have access to it.
That's what I'm saying, like
Mhm, yeah.
to have an issue arise when you yourself are the one doing the landlocking.
Yeah, then they would have to allow a right of way on that piece, right, to that other piece.
Ideally,
Yeah.
I would rather have somebody have a right-of-way agreement across the property of somebody else.
But there's something called acts as a necessity too, that it's in the law. I've heard of that before.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I am not legal, I am not a lawyer.
That came up one of these disputes like that a number of years
What's the other
ago.
road that they're connected to? What's the road that they have access to that property? Is that open road or is that still just unopened?
It's the Ridge
lots?
Road, so there's not a physical road there, it's
It's
just
just
not
road mounts.
landlocked.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's road
It-
mounts there, or,
No.
road mounts, it's not open, right?
So Ted is.
No, he's connected to the Ridge Road by virtue of owning all the
Yeah, yeah.
properties.
Oh, okay, so it's straight to the Ridge Road? with
Yeah.
property? Oh, I see, so it's,
Like, so he owns the
like, I don't
series
know,
of
I don't
properties.
understand the urgency then of this piece of right away.
Other than he probably, I don't know how he accesses it today, if he drives all the way down Ridge Road, or if he just doesn't, or from the Ridge Road down, or if he doesn't access the property, or stops at the end of Hickory and walks across. I do not know that.
So you're deferring for more information and for a revised agreement to come back.
Two separate agreements, Ted.
That's just about it right away.
One will be just the right of way.
Well, I still don't understand the right way then, if there's access to the property, chief, I don't,
There's access to the property by
Yeah.
virtue of
yeah, Ridge
owning
Road,
the other things,
owning
but
whole parcels.
if he was to sell it, he would then either be required to provide a
Yeah.
right of way
Yeah.
or this
Like, is there
new
something on
privilege.
that property now that he needs access to? Like, I don't know who we're talking about, but anyway, is there?
I'm unaware,
Okay.
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
it's best to defer it and then to have Todd and Lisa.
Well, no,
vote
that's
on the
just,
council.
like, if these guys are comfortable, that's okay, I'm not opposed.
Or do you want to
it.
bring Todd in now?
I'm not opposed to it.
I think it might make more sense to have Todd prepared for the discussion. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know sometimes
Sure.
it's tricky when you're just kind of thrust into a situation.
On on the fly, trying to answer all of our questions.
Trying to wrap
Yeah.
my mind around the rationale, that's all. Why we.
He's not in the building any,
This.
Well, that's a fair question. so-
Sorry, Angela, I didn't.
he's off today.
Okay. Well, I think this will have to be put on our next agenda.
Okay, so Ted
and
is
hopefully
making first to defer it to next agenda then.
Infrastructure's available and community services, land, have the rationale piece. Mhm.
Been moved by Ted. Is there a second for the motion to defer this to next council?
Yeah, I can second. And hopefully
so
we'll
the
have all
staff-
of the answers to make
The
a.
staff can
Yeah.
have their administrative discussion and they can come back prepared to answer whatever questions council has. But I think we have general support that there should be two agreements. One for the easement, then I guess what about the capital planning for the road extensions? Because right now it's getting done pretty much on an ad hoc, one-off basis, but we do need an overall plan and maybe prioritize them. Who's going to build when? And have some kind of capital plan update.
We have a
going forward.
motion on the books already for that, chief, and I think Todd's working on that.
Yeah.
But we also realize that Todd's quite busy, right?
They're
With
very
our
busy
ongoing
with water
project,
line
so it may
extensions and all
take
that sort
some
of thing.
time to gather that information, but part of that information will be a ballpark figure on hydro lines, water extent, all that stuff. So that council will have all that information to try and make a
I do want
most
to
informed decision.
I do want to state it though that I think that, or my feelings on this are that to elevate this chunk for that discussion, it requires this. Otherwise, it's not on the list. So I'm not suggesting that we're doing that now. It's been deferred, but I just want to share my thoughts that if we're going to have that capital discussion, that's where I'm kind of in my
Yeah.
frame of mind as to.
Yeah, because really,
This needs to be on that list.
To
Yeah,
include it.
correct, yeah.
It needs
I
to
have
be.
no problem.
Really, there's-
But I'm saying it needs to be with this agreement.
yeah, there's been a number of people that have come to council. And so there has to be some kind of capital need plan identified and costed out in order for the political lobby work to take place. And right now, without, in the absence of that administrative piece, we can't do anything to address the needs of our community, and we have no way to respond to them other than they were to council and asked, and there it stopped.
it's
So,
been
so let's
deferred.
get on with what
deferred.
we need to do, and let's get it done.
Can I request we have a 5-minute
I
break?
was just going to
please?
suggest that, Stacia.
Perfect.
Our great minds think alike. We'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, let me know. Okay, we're now back in session of council on September the 13th, and it's now 11:34 in the morning. We're on item number 7. And just so you know, Chris, the council made a decision on number 6 to defer the agreement into 2 agreements, and there needs to be no discussion on the capital piece. So, we're on item number 7, the new business registration for Dip Kings. It's a new business registration. It's an online sales business for cigars. No insurance, environment, or fire are required. And Terry Miracle is the applicant. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion, Chief.
Chris, is there a seconder?
Yeah, I can second.
Stacia? Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Item number 8. A business registration renewal for Res Boys. It's a repair and service shop. Environmental fire inspections are completed. Fire insurance is on file. And the applicant is James Alexander Bowden. Motion to approve.
Motion, Chief.
Chris, who will second it?
I'll second.
Ted? Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the resolution is passed. Motion is passed.
They should have a hand up, Chief.
Oh, Stacia?
Yeah, just a question. I'm noticing that we have a number of items on the drive that are also business renewals, but I don't see them on our agenda. Are you seeing those as well? Okay. Thank you.
So can I rely on the agenda that's put before me, Shelley?
Yes, you can.
We've approved it, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. There is the employment and training policy. The MBQ employment and training policy and procedures have been collaborated, revised by MBQ employment and training staff, the Director of Communication Services and Policy Analyst. The policy revisions are being submitted for TMC approval. This has been circulated to the council ahead of the meeting, so is council prepared to move forward with the recommended changes? If so, we will require a motion. I think they're highlighted in red in your document. Is there a motion to approve the changes? To approve the policy? If so, can I have a mover?
The definition of youth programs being 15 to 30, is that consistent with funding or?
David or Angela, can you answer Councillor Josh's question?
I can't immediately answer, but I can get an answer. I have to follow up. I can ask Lisa if you want to just hold on a second.
No, it's not pertinent. It's just more so a question where is it consistent, I guess, or is it derived from other places that I know there's been discussions in the years past of 30 being potentially too old, 15 being, whether it's certain types of groups or committees and stuff but just more so looking for consistency or context, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, Josh. Just give me a second. I'll ask her if it's been pulled from legislation or the application process and where we're getting the number.
More so,
Give me 2 minutes.
More so just for if this is something that we're going to approve, then almost apply it to other things if that's the range that we're agreeing on.
Yeah.
So
Or maybe consistent with the employment and training piece.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it just might be, again, it might just be
Okay.
specific in this context. So it'd be good to have that clarification.
And if we could paginate the policy, that would help too. So 2 pages before the end of the document, I see there's something highlighted in red there. It reads Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC, and ALFDC. Is that the only change that's been part of this policy? It's a chart. The 3rd page from the end.
This is employer intake forms you're talking about?
Application for Aboriginal Employment Benefit Support Measures.
Yeah.
And then there's Mohawks, the Bay of Quinte part. Contribution file number. And I see there's something added there, Employment and Social Development, ESDC, and the LTC is added in there. Is that the only change that's recommended to this policy? Maybe we should bring Lisa in because she's submitted it, please.
Well, this was submitted by Ken Sparks.
But she's reviewed it though.
What was the word you used, G? Is it could be what? Each word, something like that?
Or paginated?
Paginate,
What's that mean?
number the pages.
Okay.
Pages are numbered on mine.
So if you have to refer the council to, you can say, go to page number, so that
I got you.
just describe how far it is from the back.
Yeah, you must missed on yours, I guess. Yeah, and here
Still
they're
got cut
numbered.
off. We got page numbers on ours.
Yeah.
but-
No, there's none on mine. There's some on the first page 4, must have got cut, you're right, it must have got cut off.
So, hey, Josh, in response to your question, I talked to Shushu, and she said that with respect to the age range, the 15 to 30, her understanding is that comes from Service Canada. And then when I asked her about consistency across the rest of our policies, she said,
The attachments?
Yep.
sorry, can you hear me, Josh?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what she said about the others is that, and she'd have to look at what they are, but she said other programs is dependent upon the funding agreement itself. So as an example, she said Good Minds may not have the same age range. It may be smaller, it may be 15 to 24 or something like that, but she doesn't know off the top of her head. We'll have to look into it.
I appreciate that. That's good.
Hey, Lisa,
I thought-
is the only change to the policy, it's not numbered at the attachments at the back are not numbered on the document I have in front of me.
Okay, sorry
And
about
so
that.
it's the Employment and Social Development Canada, ESD, and the LTC. Is that the only change that's through this whole document? Are all the changes highlighted in red?
Sorry, just let me pull it up. I dump everything out of my head and onto the next thing once we upload it.
So when it's updated, I don't know what's changed other than what I see in
So
hot
much
red.
of it has been updated. It's been updated from what we used to operate on when we were with Kajita Mikam to
Okay,
what
I
we're
see.
doing now. So we took a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but we wanted to get through a number of scenarios to make sure our policy was accurate in meeting the needs of what we need. We are still experiencing things even as we were working on it. Those one-offs that are becoming more regular that are also not included in here. For the most part, I would say that it's, well, based on our old policy, I would classify this as a new policy. We've made that many changes throughout the document.
Okay.
Can you just highlight what the changes are, just so we're,
Oh, Chief, I would
Too
consider
numerous
it a
to
brand new
mention?
policy.
okay.
So
So-
while we used what we had, we've built on it.
Okay,
And we
one-
do
one-
so
one
much
qu-
more.
One question that came up from Councillor Josh was the definition of youth, and there's different ages and different criteria for different programs. So I guess is it possible to achieve some consistency with it?
David just kind of spoke to that. If you want to reiterate what you said with Shu there, David?
Yeah, so Chief, for your clarity, what I was saying is that with respect to the 15 to 30 for this particular policy, Shushu believes that it comes from Service Canada. But with respect to some of our other programs like Good Minds, they're not necessarily the same because the funding agreements would have a different definition. So we can't necessarily have that kind of consistency. It's something that we'll definitely look at to see where there are variances, but it's not something that we can just arbitrarily change because it's based upon the funding agreements that we receive for each of these programs.
And my thinking behind that was if there was a situation where somebody, say, is 28 years old and under this policy, they're eligible for a youth program, but there's a youth program through, and again, for example, Good Minds that specifies youth training, youth whatever, for 18 to 24, then I'm just saying that person could say, well, don't I qualify? Or what, isn't this different from the policy? So that's why I was asking for consistency. You have to, I guess, take into consideration that when you are defining it, but just more to bring it to attention that that's a wide range.
So,
And I was thinking that there was limitations or constraints or red tape, if you want to call it, for certain funding, program funding. That's all.
So I had the same question because a lot of programs are 15 to 29 and not 15 to 30. So I did have that question clarified myself, and Ken came back. It was 15 to 30 in their agreements. So I understand the confusion across the MBQ board and programs and such.
Not
But-
confusion, just more clarification if anything was to ever arise, right? So if somebody was to say, you know, why aren't I eligible? Or if to the contrary, why is my 15-year-old, you know, and this 30-year-old, right? Both, right? So just having that clarification ahead of time is probably better than when we
So-
encounter it, so.
So you would like something changed?
No, I
Oh,
just was
okay.
saying
Just
that
a point of-
as if and when we approve this, that there are other youth-oriented programs that may have different eligibilities, that if somebody was to refer to this, there'd need to be a conversation.
Okay. Okay, so I guess always being clear that this is the age group for
So
this
really-
particular.
this only applies to the programs that are operated by ALFDC and Employment and Social Development Canada. Is that correct, Lisa?
This, my understanding, this would only apply to this policy. If somebody else has a different policy with different age ranges, and that's what you're trying to access funding under, that would be under
But-
their definition.
So this is just for the programs that could
For
make
em-
them used to operate.
ALFSD,
Employment and training.
employment,
Yeah,
training.
okay.
Okay.
So
Alright,
is it
does
us using
council
that?
approve the policy?
Is it us using that number then, or is that based on our funders?
Based on our funders,
Okay.
what the
That's fine.
funding is
Yeah.
available to provide.
Okay.
There's a lot of funding criteria that we have to observe, and every
Mhm.
program may be different.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
And we can't, it's hard because sometimes we initially assume it applied on this one, so the next one, but on this program specifically 15 to 30.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the policy? They need to operate under a policy.
I'll move. Yeah.
Moved by Ted.
Thanks, Lisa. Ken?
Is there a seconder?
Yeah,
Chris?
oh, go ahead.
Chris, you need to speak into the mic because they have to hear you.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
seconder?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, either Josh, you're gonna second, I don't care.
Okay, Ted.
I support it, so it's
It's
good.
been moved by Ted and seconded by Chris
Okay.
and supported by Josh. Stacia, are you in agreement?
Um,
The motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. Do I have more agenda items? Okay. I'm not quite sure how
Of
far you
net-
are.
You can't expect us to have an
Ontario
answer for
First
that.
Nations Economic Development Funding
Oh,
Agreement.
yes. So, for that one, Diana was at a meeting. OFNIDA was there. I'm not quite sure if it was an OFNIDA meeting or not. So the Ontario First Nations Economic Developers Association.
I was there. I brought it
okay.
to I
So-
circulated an email to everybody.
Right. They have funding they received funding and they have funding available to any number of First Nations who apply. It's just over, I believe, $11,000.
$11,417 per
Yeah.
community.
And can help offset some of our costs for conferences, etc., for that travel costs. And they just needed a schedule of costs attached and to sign the agreement, and they will flow us the money. So that's,
I'll move, Chief.
thank you.
Moved by Chris, who will second it?
Yeah, I can second.
Stacia? Anyone opposed?
They've had very little uptake, so they were reaching out to their two people for that. So
Yeah.
excellent.
Scott McLeod brought it to the attention of the chiefs because he sits on the Economic Development Committee that. Yeah, I've signed it.
Is that all mine? Am I done?
I think so.
Sir?
I think so.
Okay, thank you for now.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, Lisa, we need to get on with, get to that meeting with that RD, that RD that they sent to us. concerning the
Oh,
policy
Chief,
drive-
sorry, yes, the
So
additional,
what I was going to suggest, why don't we have a meeting and find out what's on that RD-ROM document and have a discussion about that. What's the new information? Is it just basically the Jordan only submitted certain documents and they've compiled the whole or are there new documents that our team has not seen?
so both Chief, Trish and Stephen have been through the document listing as well as the scans provided. They are busy transcribing what are new documents to us. We have taken the document chart that was provided and added a couple columns to that to provide a descriptor. And if we have the document already, if it was included in the document package, but as another source, or if it was included in our research and omitted by legal counsel. So, and not included by legal counsel. So we are aiming to get that up-to-date chart with our additional notes into it by the end of the week back to you so that you can see.
Yeah,
we are working on the transcriptions as well. A couple of them
I'd
are what we did not have and are actually very helpful to us.
Okay, what I'd like to have is a meeting then with the council and yourself and Jordan to go over what that new information is and how does that impact the validity of our claim.
Okay,
And
perfect.
then have a meeting, schedule a meeting, because they're writing all the time asking for a date when we can meet.
Yes.
And so I've been waiting for that exercise to be completed so we know where we're at.
Okay, so I'll talk to Trish and Stephen and get a time frame of when those additional transcriptions will be done. As you can understand, sitting in front of a computer reading old style writing takes a bit of a toll on you and not something you can do for 8 hours a day. So I'll see the time frame for that. I will reach out to Jordan to see his available meeting dates and then circulate that.
So we need to know how do we interpret all of that on our end, what the impact is on the validity of the claim. And so we need our understanding of that. Then we need to meet with the department to
Yes,
see what their understanding of it is.
correct.
And then compare notes. And then if we have to fight, we fight.
The documents that I have read through to this point are just provide more helpful support to our position.
That's what I would have expected because the theme is pretty clear throughout the whole thing. There was some sort of irregularity. The other thing is I would like that protest document that was filed when the church was consecrated in September 1844 because they did complain about trespassers to Bishop Strong.
Yes, so Stephen, you had confirmed to Stephen that was the document you were speaking of, and
I remember
we will
that
get
document, so they did find it, and that is what I remember.
Okay, perfect. We will add that. There was some undertakings from the presentation on that one, and we will circulate those now that we have.
And we
that
might have to
confirmed.
articulate because the Church of England had a lot of influence in the early days of the Executive Council of Upper Canada.
Yes.
And so would have been normal at that time for them to appeal to the bishop because he had moral influence with the people that were making political and executive decisions.
Yes.
Because they were all part of the same group.
Correct.
They were all part of the WASP group, the White Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Yes. Okay.
They all belonged to the WASP nest.
Okay, thank you. We'll follow up. and
As a
we'll
matter
get
of
back
fact,
to you.
that's why there was a rebellion.
Yes, for sure. Right, I almost did that. Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
get it.
So Jordan's principal, they want to apply for 2 navigators. They suspect that, you know, the wages will be a little bit more than $50,000 for each of them. They need 2. Right now, they don't have any dedicated staff for that. And then there's a number of applicants, and it's advisable because a lot of times if they fill out the applications correctly and do the legwork, things can get approved. So I would recommend council support this request from Susan.
Motion, Chief.
Chris?
Yeah, I can second.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. The addition to the CWC building, I sent you some information this morning. I did ask Susan to identify what the anticipated costs might be, and I think it's a little over $2 million. Just let me see, CWC.
It's a shortfall of just a little over $2 million.
So as per your inquiry this afternoon, the cost for the Cedarville expansion is $12,439,600. I believe we currently have $10,375.97 allocated, which leaves a shortfall of $2,069,003.
Motion.
So they want to apply to Jordan's principal capital. There is capital money that's not been spent.
That was hands up, Chief.
Oh, let's go. Who?
Shelley's hand.
Oh, Shelley, yes.
Chief, you got an email from Cecil. There is no outstanding request. There's money in the budget to cover.
So she doesn't need this resolution?
We have it.
Well, right now, if they can get extra capital, because there's capital money in Jordan's principal that's not being applied for, or spent by anybody. So to get it, if you can get it, get it.
Well, we can still have an MCR for the Jordan's principal application for infrastructure to
And
ISC.
if there's any cost overruns or any surprises, then you're going to have a budget.
Just to refresh my memory,
I sent that around as well when we had the meeting, that there was capital. I asked them to send me the information. I did forward it to the council and to the executive and staff and everybody.
so this is just trying to remember the timeline here. So this was first approved, this expansion. And then new money was identified. And then the expansion expanded to fit the new budget. And now the building that they want to build, or that we're planning on building, now costs even more.
That's right.
So come a long way, I guess, is what I'm saying.
From nothing to 12 million.
Well, no, I'm saying, I'm saying you had this that was funded, but then there was money that they could inject into it. So that, therefore, we had the capability to build even bigger.
Yeah.
But now that building even bigger, we don't have the money for it. So
Well,
the solution is
I don't
get
know-
more money rather
Okay.
than build what we were gonna build. when we could afford.
I don't know what the plans, how they have changed. If my understanding is we had a proposal, a design to build a building. I don't think that has been scaled down as far as, not that I've been told. And so, what are we building? Has the design been scaled down or altered in any way? David or Angela, do you know?
So Chief, I don't know because I'd have to actually go back to Tom and Susan, but I gotta ask a question. When I'm in the folder, I can't see what number we're talking about for the proposed value.
Okay, I'll just,
It's not in.
It's number 12, and I was gonna say, I would refer to the documents provided, but there aren't any. There's an agenda sheet.
Yeah, so Josh, just so you know, I went back in my emails because I'd seen something earlier today from Cecil, and it looks to me like our actual budget that we have available from 2 different sources of funding is 16. So I don't think we actually have a shortfall. I have to look deeper into this
Okay.
to see what it is.
David, there must be something wrong with your computer, because my email shows that Susan sent it to me and you and Angela and Shelley, yesterday at 3:59 PM.
Yeah, I'm not looking in my email, chief. I'm looking in the folder, for this council meeting. So I'll go back and look at that, email from yesterday. But what I'm telling you is I have an email from Cecil this morning saying the budget we have available, it's in excess of $12 million. So if the dollar figure that Susan
Yeah,
thinks,
but where is the money coming from though? Is this money coming from other band resources that we could?
no, it's two budget line items that have been set up for the expansion. So Cecil could explain it probably better, but I got two budgets here that it shows that the money is already there.
But where's the source of the budget? Is it all government money or is some of it MBQ resources?
No, as far as I understand from looking at it, it's all government money that we've received.
Yeah, but don't
So-
forget, it's not just for the building, it's also for the hiring of those positions. And there was a plan that came forward to council before all this, and it was
Okay, so
approved.
how much of it is capital then? Because it looks like the cost for the CW expansion is 12 million. So if some of that 10 million we got from Ann Scotton is going to be used for wages and benefits, then how much is left for capital? What's the capital shortfall?
Yeah, I'm gonna need to get Cecil to do a breakdown. So I can't answer it right now on the phone. I'm just telling you that I've got a total balance of 16, but
Then what you should.
I don't have the answer you're looking for, so I gotta follow up with her.
So
Okay.
in the meantime, so I know Chris has made a motion to support the drafting of a proposal for submission for the maximum allowable to offset the overage.
Yeah.
I will support that, but that application, but I would like to, in respect to the chief and David's emails and Cecil and everybody else, when we're having these types of discussions, to only have the agenda sheet is, I would say, problematic. And that's for all the members of council that are tasked with making these decisions.
Well-
So I can support the
Okay.
submission for the funding. That would be what's the most we can get for any overages. But before we approve or revisit, like I want this to be in front of us.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, so anyhow, I agree with Josh's comments. We need to make sure that things are assessed, because Andrew's just brought up some of the 10 million is for staffing. And I do recall that being part of it too. So we need to revisit what is the capital component and is there sufficient capital?
Chief, I didn't say of the 10 million. I said of the budgets that David mentioned, don't forget that there's other things that
No,
were
but
part.
my understanding though, with that 10 million, it wasn't all capital. I thought there was some of it was to hire staff as well.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, rather than leave it to not forgetting, let's just put it in front of everybody's
Yeah,
faces.
just
We're
review
making
it.
assumptions.
Just review it and let's be sure.
Correct.
But meanwhile, we'll go ahead and apply for the funds.
Yeah, I
I mean, if
support
you don't
that.
need it, you can always send it back, okay?
If there is no overage, then yeah, so.
And the
but-
other thing, sometimes when they get building, there are surprises that that are not anticipated, so it's always good to have money to fall back on.
Yeah. Again, my point was being that this has gone from this to this to
Right.
this, because the funding was this, and now it's getting there, and it's like, well, we're short on funding. So,
How are we short on
and the
funding?
solution is to get more money, rather than, oh, maybe,
Well, the other thing is that
Right.
there are furnishings and all that kind of stuff that have to go in the building.
lots of
Once it's been
considerations.
built, so does that capital budget include furnishings? What does it include? We don't know. Anyway, just review it and make sure it includes all of that and what is the shortfall in capital or operating. We need to know that.
'Cause I'd love to be able to support it.
But
So that's-
one thing I can tell you is I would urge council to apply for the capital because it's not going to sit there forever. And there's other needs
No,
coming in, so.
We've
there-
got a
there-
motion to do that,
So who's moving?
Chris and myself.
Chris? And Josh?
With an action item, I have a project summary, a project to date, I guess, to where we were and where we are. A brief one. I don't think it needs to be too in-depth, David, but just to give us some context.
Yeah, no, 100%, Josh, I agree.
Okay, great. It's been moved and seconded. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion's carried. The MCMFS Traditional Housing Program, transitional housing program. So our transitional housing programs were completed in October of last year, and we now have a policy, and this would apply to the Wyman's Road House, the former Phil Miracle House, and the Mohawk Rectory. Does council approve this policy? If so, who will move the policy?
We need a policy, chief. I'll move.
Moved by Chris. Who will second it? This is for the placement of people in those units.
I'll second.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried.
I'm not opposed, but I would like a little bit more time personally, and I can just do this on, when I can to review this
Okay,
in depth. I feel that there are a few conflicting pieces here that may cause us the questions may come up in the future about certain points.
Okay.
So
If the
I'm happy to
policy-
take a look at this and bring this back and point out some of the pieces that may need to be revised.
okay.
Because I don't know if all of you have had the opportunity to review this in depth. I haven't personally looked at all 22 pages, so in detail, but I do see some things right now that I think we may need to revisit.
I've been urging the staff, Susan, to get a policy before council because these buildings have been sitting there now empty for quite a while,
Yeah.
for a year.
Well, there's a
It's a
policy
start.
now.
It's a start.
Yeah,
So-
and
so-
exactly. We've got
That's
to
fine.
And
start somewhere.
if it needs to be amended, well, we can amend the
that's right.
policy, but at
For
least we have
sure.
something to work with.
But that also too requires us to review it, and because we are the table that is responsible for reviewing and then ultimately approving this, it does require us to actually read the policy to understand it. So that when, of course, we have questions or when concerns come up from community members, that we're able to speak to it. And so I feel I'm not in a position to speak to it in depth. I do believe and agree that we need something, but I think, again, this goes
Well,
to our own responsibility to be able
Just
to
that,
review
just
this.
on the housing side, there is a lot of, the housing staff get a lot of pressure as well, and it came up at the community meeting on July the 31st, that, why are these houses sitting empty?
I get
And
that
so-
question almost every day, chief.
So we need to, the policy will address that. They can go ahead and start using it for the purpose it was intended for.
Oh, I agree. I'm not disputing that fact. What I'm saying is that we need to understand also too
No, I
what the
agree.
policy says.
No, I agree.
We can't just pass something and, but I agree, we need to have something, this is it. And I think we have an opportunity to review this.
Okay, and when you finish your reviews, if you have some recommended changes, bring them to council station.
Yeah,
and then
no, for
we'll-
sure,
We'll deal with
absolutely.
it. But check with to have a meeting with the staff first to see if they're in support, and we can get our ducks in a row and move forward if there's changes needed. Chris?
Chief, may I suggest that council forward all their concerns, suggestions, et cetera, to the staff now and have this on the
Okay,
next
for-
agenda? So we can
yeah.
No,
approve
no,
it
I
and
think
the
you need to have
question
something in
answered?
place.
Yeah,
I think,
forward them to David and Angela and Susan, copy them all in on it, and that way they can start working on it, because there's a lot of stuff that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
we can amend policy at any time,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
right.
that's the thing. So you can have something in place and then we can come back to do this.
And we
So-
have one in place now.
Yeah, you have one in place.
Yep.
And then we will
Maybe
look
some
to
amendment.
doing, it's
Maybe
never
some
going to be
maybe amendment.
perfect. Policies are never perfect.
No.
They evolve as things change.
That's right.
So,
Chief, I'm just concerned about how much longer those houses are going to continue to sit idle. We're paying utilities, we're not getting any
No,
revenues.
no,
People
my
are home.
understanding from speaking with Susan and Tom, that Susan is going to pay the hydro and the utilities, and I think the insurance, well, they're waiting for the policy. So I've been questioning this a number of times at council, where is the policy? And so it's there now.
Yeah, but are we not deferring it though?
No.
Are we
no,
adjusting
no,
it?
no one suggesting.
Because
to
my
defer.
understanding,
you
but
just
David,
want
is that
to-
correct? David, Angela, is that correct? Is Susan paying the hydro from the time the buildings were completed until now? We did get money from, I think it was over $500,000 from Ann Scotton to renovate those buildings.
You moved, Ted second, and I supported it. Stacia said she's not in a position to confidently support or not, but she's gonna do a individual review and provide feedback for
Correct.
consideration.
So how would you like to record your vote, Stacia?
No, I'm in support of it. I think it's just more of
Just a
a,
good point.
you know, of a point to make that we're passing these things, and I just don't think we always have the opportunity to review these policies in depth, particularly when it's a brand new policy. So like I said, I have not had the opportunity to do this within the last 5 days to review
Okay.
this in depth. So
Okay.
I will commit to doing that.
So
and
what
passing on
should
those
happen with
comments.
these policy changes? I think it would be wise if the staff, the director and the staff have a meeting with the portfolio holder. So the portfolio holder is knowledgeable of what's coming on the agenda, because we do look to the portfolio holders to be the expert on these issues that are on the agenda. So that's part of your oversight role.
Right, but this one would be.
But sometimes,
This is a brand new policy.
But
Right.
sometimes the staff tell me that they don't ever see their portfolio holder. So there should be administration, and the portfolio holder should sit down from time to time to go over things that are going on in the department, so everybody's knowledgeable what's happening and what they're responsible for.
Right, but in this instance, this would fall under Statia's portfolio.
Yeah,
because
that's
Family
right.
and Child Services.
Yeah, because it's who can go in there, under what circumstances, and how long can you stay there, and who's going to pay the bills, and to who, and all this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
So-
actually a hybrid. It's still an
Yeah.
MBQ owned
Yeah.
building. So
And
it's
then-
actually a hybrid approach.
And then the higher level review would take place, maybe with the director coming to council to explain the policy and answer any questions that council has.
I'd say your
So good,
policy
we
on
have
that, so we
something.
could do better.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have something.
And
But, you know,
then
there's
me.
been summer holidays.
We've been waiting for some time because we had that
Yeah.
draft one in
vacation
February. I
and stuff
believe.
like that, so there really has been, and coordination is really what's needed to deal
Well,
with the.
being in the know and being an expert is two different things.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's for sure.
That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
We are on number Hicks Morty invoice, motion to pay these invoices. There's one for $106, and there's one for June 30th, and one for July 31st for $371.
Move.
Moved by Chris. We'll second it.
I'll second.
Ted? Anyone opposed? Carried. The All Saints Church ramp, the estimate's coming at $268,000 from Maury Construction and Consulting. The tender's closed. The recommendation is to reissue the tender. They felt that the price was too high. What is council's request? Do you want to go ahead with the one tender we received, or do you want to retender?
Can we get some clarity as why Santini never quoted their specialists?
I don't think they're involved in the cement work anymore. They're just like doing like stone reporting and pointing and all that kind of about buildings, sidewalks and ramps and stuff. It's not really what their forte is. I did work with Matt Morey, and Charlie and I and Matt sat down and we designed the steps and the walkway at Christchurch, and so that turned out really well.
Right, and what was the cost on that one, Chief? I know it was a couple of years ago, pre-COVID.
I think it was there were three projects. One was the driveway, the steps and the ramp, and then the refurbishing of Ojisco's
Yeah,
tomb.
but the steps and the ramp, ballpark?
I don't, it wasn't that much. I can tell you that was
More than 100?
$60,000 or something. The
That's
design
what I
was
thought, yeah.
around 3,000
Mm-hmm. Okay.
or 22,000. We can get the numbers from.
No, that's
from
okay. I
Cecil.
just
No,
curious
no,
on
we'll get the numbers for you.
discrepancies.
Can you get the numbers, David or Angela from Cecil, on the cost, or from Tom on the Christchurch ramp alone, without the driveway and the Ojisco tomb thing?
Chief, I'll move to retender.
What, Chris?
Just a question for the table for discussion. This is an accessibility concern, right?
There was a fund to apply for accessibility funds. I think it's expired now,
But
but
what I'm
I
saying
did
is-
circulate that around
But
too.
this is to address an accessibility issue? This ramp?
Well, it's to make it more accessible to the front door because it's accessible through the back door. You can go to the Queen Anne Hall, then go through the vestry there. to
It's
get into the
accessible
church.
for those with devices,
Yeah.
with
My
aids.
My question is that, let's say, for example, FNTI, they have a ramp to get in their building. Did that cost $340,000?
It's a wooden ramp.
Are people able to access the building?
They are.
Is it safe?
It has to be to get insurance.
So I guess I'm good with reissuing the tender, but my question is, and it's more, I guess, fundamental is there other ways to address accessibility and safety concerns for accessing this building?
Yeah.
I think, when we first started looking at that,
Right.
Tommy had put a request out for people to come and look at it and give them I don't know what the
Well,
words
we've
are, but
gotta
give them a price.
Who
on
built the
what they
ramp at
expect.
FNTI?
I don't know.
The band carpenters.
But nobody would address it. They wanted, you tell us what you want. I think that was where
We had
this is all
carpenters in.
stemmed from.
But no, I think that was carpenters looking to do
I'm not. I
this
can't-
type of
yeah,
work,
I'm sure.
not carpentry.
I'm not sure. That's what
So that's my only question is as we see these numbers and as Chris said, there's some discrepancies from either what was expected now or even in comparison to previous projects.
Well, what they did is they met with them and there was a design based on what they wanted. And
Yeah.
so the design went forward and then there was a design. So then the contractor's going to bid on that design.
Like, I guess my question is that whenever there's an accessibility and a safety concern, let's say in the subdivision, let's say at FNTI, which is a public building, next door over here, the doctor's office, that's not on the ground. There's the ability for somebody with mobility challenges to access that facility. And that's with what they have. Have we explored that route to address health, safety, and accessibility concerns?
Well, with the Christchurch ramp, like we fundraised the biggest part of it.
I understand that, but I guess I'm just asking, if we
Parks
were to revisit this or take it out for tender again, what's the best case scenario? We get something that's potentially a little bit cheaper?
Are there
But-
other options?
That's what I'm asking
Yes.
is
Yeah, are there?
genuinely, like, I don't want to have somebody that has mobility challenges falling downstairs. I don't want that.
That's a
So
good point.
so how can we address that
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I think.
from a,
Well, if you went from a cement to a stone structure, you would to a wooden structure, it certainly would be, I would think, cheaper. But they probably wouldn't like it.
I would prefer to have, I would say an elderly person not have to be concerned about walking up the stairs to this building. I don't know if anybody scoffed at walking to FNTI or going to this dog shop. I don't know if anybody feels about using those because it's wooden. So that's all I'm saying is I'm not proposing you go that route. I'm just putting it out for discussion that when we're talking about $250,000 to address an accessibility, and just for context, how many steps are there to get into that building?
Maybe one?
No, three or
I think
four.
was gonna
there's three or
say,
four, yeah.
There's three or four at the front where the front
So-
step is, but at the back, it's sloped up and you go in their
So-
door there. But you can it's all on the same floor level to go into that hall in the church, but you can't go down to the basement.
Even if there's
need an
any type of
elevator there.
outdoor lifts that you could, like, I'm just saying, if we're back to the drawing board, rather than just retender it, is there any opportunity to find alternatives to address the mobility and accessibility challenges that building currently faces?
Well, the band might want to construct it themselves.
Yeah.
Chief, we should have had this conversation before you spent 50,000 on engineers, consultants. I don't have much of hindsight, but.
But the direction was they were to meet with Tom and design it and go over what they wanted. And I understand there's a patio there too, but I don't know.
I
which
just
part
want
of
to
it.
clarify that. So it's an action item for David. So can you get Tom, because I don't think we're not approving this,
Well,
but
Tom is recommending to retain.
no, but I'm saying just again, so that we have accurate context. Tom Kring's, or what money has been spent to date on this attempt to address this concern? I think it would be helpful for everybody to have that number.
The sidewalk up there needs repair. That's a real hit.
Did they do that though? Did that not get done?
So.
The safety concerns
It's all,
didn't get
it's
addressed?
all one, they agreed to patch it or do
Yeah.
something, but really they needed the sidewalk.
That's probably part of this cost, I imagine. But
But I'm good with reissuing the tender, I guess. But I just want to say, like,
I'm just concerned we're going to get either nothing or the same thing. So will we actually see something different?
I guess my question is why not award this? Is
Yeah,
it because it's too much
that's
money?
That's a good question too.
You can do that.
So that's my question: is why not award it? What's the reason to not award it?
I think Tom
Because
thinks that
It's too much money?
It's too much money.
Okay, so what are we anticipating by reissuing it? A lesser price?
Well,
A drastic lesser price? If this was 200,000, would we approve
local
that?
contractors are quite busy building houses.
I understand.
So they're not available. They're tied up with building other houses.
said the original estimate was around 64. They're looking at.
Yeah, you see, you have no comparator, right?
Up to
So
200,
So when you look at a $268,000 bid coming in for this one specific activity, you don't have a second bid as a comparator. The only thing you can do is maybe get a value engineering firm to take a look at your original estimate and reprice it. But then you're going to spend money potentially for nothing. Josh, I agree with what you're saying about looking at alternatives. I'll have a chat with Tom about what they did look at and what the actual needs are and why the price for this is what it is, and also what we spent to date in terms of looking at it. And I'll get that information back to the table.
So can I ask this, that we make a motion to not award the contract and to have this brought back to us with one of the options being to reissue the tender, but other options be available as well? And at the next meeting, we decide whether to reissue the tender or not, or what direction we go. And then in that time, Tom can have that number of what's been spent to date available so that we have some context for what we're doing here. Is that,
Yeah, if that,
I think that
Chris,
makes
are you
perfect
good
like,
sense.
you made a motion to reissue the tender, but I was just saying, can we defer that decision until the next one?
so what I've got written down here is not award the contract and review the options.
And yeah, I can second that.
Is that your motion, Chris?
Sure.
And Josh? Okay.
Yeah.
Motion is carried. Everyone's agreeable to that course of action? Okay. But just keep in mind, though, that the weather is getting on. We're into the fall now.
Well, the briefing note said it wouldn't be done by.
And if you post it into winter work, it's going to cost more. The elder care home. MBQ has, the other thing I do with All Saints Church, we do insure that building, so if somebody got hurt there, we would be on the hook.
Well, that's why I asked, has the safety concerns been addressed? I know it's temporary. Like those sidewalks, the
Yeah,
cracks, or
the other
whatever,
thing
has that
we-
been addressed? I
We,
imagine
the Trillium Fund has capital grants. I don't know when the next intake is. It's probably in January now or in the winter, but this year is pretty much over. The Trillium Fund should be looked at for some funding for that. MBQ has received the Ministry of Long-Term Care approval proceed to construction and is now ready to sign the CCDC 2 stipulated price contract and core bill construction totaling $69,950,000. Approved to sign the present CCDC 2 stipulated price contract with core bill construction totaling $69,950,000. And the project budget totaling $82,133,032. That's the recommendation to sign it. Is there a motion? Motion, Chief. Chris? This has to be in place to get the CMHC money. Is there a seconder to this motion?
I can second.
Stacia? Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Also, we received, Cecil sent around an email that the 10,368,000 will be here on in our account on the 22nd of September. That's for getting the shovels in the ground before August 31st. So that money should be invested until it's needed in short-term investments. David and Angela?
You should, did you notice that brief minute where it said Hydro One, it's looking at, what, since you have.
Well,
Hydro One-
actually, I'm surprised that the
Or
consultants
What was
didn't.
the project?
Well, actually, Tom mentioned to me yesterday, it's over $1 million, but I'm calling Spencer Gill about that to find out what is Hydro doing with.
Awesome to donate, anyway.
I'm gonna ask for the paper, all of it.
Yeah, ask for a donation towards that project.
Kyle Beer said that the department will help with that. We've already had the conversation with him.
No, it's all good. And the other ones.
Maybe they should have left it on the Bay Shore Road.
You don't think there'd be no upgrade there?
I don't know.
Wait a second.
I said maybe, I'd have to find out.
We don't own any land on the Bay Shore Road.
But actually, if we're gonna build more houses and growth is gonna occur, then Hydro needs to keep pace with the development of the community. There needs to be conversations with Hydro
Hydro.
and our staff about if we're planning to build something, let them know so we know that there's Hydro there. We can no
Yeah,
longer work in silos.
their policy changes all the time, though, Chief. One time, we'd never had to pay for any of that infrastructure.
Well, Todd Smith, if he's worth his
No.
salt, then I'm gonna get after him to get some money of it.
So, yeah, it's hard to keep up with. Because you're gonna have natural gas, you got all that, you might have charges for it as well, might be changed again, right? Just like this York Road project.
Yeah.
Now they want everybody
Everything
that
is
ties
done.
into it to pay extra. Nobody else has, but we have to for 40 years. That sounds real fair, no?
I'm pushing them on that too.
Extra charge. Isn't that wild, eh? Well, it's not just here. that's doing
I've
it.
already had a conversation with Todd Smith about it,
Oh, I think it's great.
but I don't think he's gonna do much. So when we have the leadership council meeting, I'm gonna bring it up there
Yeah, I think it's worth bringing it.
with Doug Ford.
Government
Maybe
put
he's
$8
listening right
million
now.
towards it.
Hmm?
Maybe he's tuned in right now.
He could be.
Yeah. I know.
I'll bring it up with Doug Ford. Ask him.
So Chief, I just noticed before we move on that the next item, number 17, is actually, was intended to be in private. So I think that
Yes, well-
that's our last regular item that we just concluded was the elder care home, if I'm reading this right now.
Okay, let's see here. And the railway safety has already been done. There's already motion that's gone out. So we will need, just hold on before I just gotta call Chris Hoyos back to find out when we're meeting with there's a date yet. And just make sure on number the 17, the upcoming meetings, that they're all there for your,
But there's no more room to record
so can I just put the date in the minutes and I can finally get in touch with Chris, whatever the housing for the meeting with the premier is gonna take place with the Minister Paul Calandra?
Just want to add it to those meetings that
Yeah,
we approved.
yeah. It'll be,
I don't know
just
who made the motion.
add it
but
there,
yeah,
but
sure.
date to be determined. The meeting with Paul Calandra and on the Chiefs Committee on Housing and Infrastructure. So I've been,
TBD.
their lines are full or they'll call you back. So This will go in private then, the next one. Motion to go in private.
Yeah, I'll move.
Moved by Stacia,
I'll second.
and second by Ted. Anyone opposed?